This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta broke his silence since he retired and came out to answer President William Ruto on various national issues. Addressing mourners at the home of former Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha, Kenyatta dismissed claims by Ruto that his family avoided paying taxes while he was in power. Uhuru's statement was prompted by remarks of Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, who criticized Ruto for allegedly following the Kenyatta family for personal political reasons.
Number one now, being victimized. I want to tell you, Kenyans, if anybody was today to go out and seem to victimize President Uhuru Kenyatta, I don't know what is going to happen to this country.
Nawe Steve, usijali hii watu wanapiga mdomo, wacha wapige bana. Unajua mtu ambaye hana kitu kingine ya kufanya lazima apige mdomo. Wacha wapige mdomo. Hiyo ni dunia. Sisi tunaendelea na yetu.
In addition, Kenyatta strongly criticized Ruto's government actions to reevaluate the implementation of the CBC education system, which he introduced, saying that his move will only affect the growth of students.
Hiyo ni wataongea, utaona watarudi tu hapo hapo. Wacha wapatiwe nafasi wapige mgumzo. They will come back there. Kuna pahali ingine wataenda. Yeah? Because it was not done to hate this one, to spite that one, to do this one. It was done in the interest of the children of this republic, to better prepare them for that future that was rapidly or radically different from the future that some of us had to look forward to.
But for the first time ever, the widow of George Magoha, Barbara Odudu Magoha, said that Magoha was a no-nonsense individual. She says that despite his demeanor, Magoha was a happy person who loved his family more and made it a priority at all time. She painted a picture of a man who, despite not being a Nigerian, was courageous enough to ask her out in medical school back in Nigeria.
I want to remove that serious face of Magoha so that you know the other side of Magoha. Exactly 1 month after we met, he started telling people we are going to get married. And that was the first time we had a quarrel. I said, how can you do that? He said, no, I know you will not accept because I'm not a Nigerian. So you go and tell them why you can't marry me.
Barbara said that Nigerian men did not let her rest easy for dating and even agreeing to marry a Kenyan man.
We Nigerians, marrying from the same village was the norm because somehow we were never related. So to hear that I left the village, left the town, left the county, we still call them states, we call them states. Left the other states, left the whole of Nigeria. It was like, you are crazy. Everybody said you are crazy. What's wrong with you? In fact, there was this slang that what is there in Sokoto is there in Shokoto. Sokoto is the farthest point northwest of Nigeria. Shokoto. Written the same way, but pronounced S-O-K-O-T-O. Shokoto means trouser in Yoruba language. So they say, what you are looking for so far away is here. Where are you?
And many have continued to wonder why the two had one child who's a doctor like them. That is Dr. Michael Magoha. And Barbara had this to say.
So when we continued, got married, when I was pregnant with my son, I was in between life and death with my blood pressure. He told me if this is what pregnancy is all about, this is closed, this case is closed. And when I had my son, because of the blood pressure and everything, I didn't have any milk. You can't imagine, by 6:30, I had 2 liters of fruit juice, squeezed by him every morning before going to work. And the others used to say, what type of a man is this?
It would also be remembered that Magoha was a guitarist. He loved playing his bass guitar. Now, in a historic departure from tradition, all materials needed for the cabinet meeting were loaded onto new purchase tablets that are issued to every cabinet secretary. The CSs arrived at State House, Nairobi, without a traditionally bulky folders, large briefcases, and huge files. The move is expected to significantly reduce the cost of printing and enhance security of cabinet records. President William Ruto said that the digitization of cabinet meetings was a clear signal that the government was moving digital. And the government has announced that it will start issuing digital death and birth certificates from March 1st. Immigration PS Julius Pitok says the launch coincides with the introduction of the unique personal identifiers, which will act as lifetime ID for newborns. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
One 102.5 SpiceFM, Kisumu.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
Everybody, welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Neri Latifa, Muga, Madam Du, nimesalamia wote sana.
Tumepokea salamu, asante sana.
Hapa Garissa today the weather is very good, only that baridi inatupeleka mbio sana.
Sasa baridi ni degree ngapi hapo?
Hata sijui lakini madam tunakauka sana.
If you want to follow the money trail, you've got to think like a thief to be able to catch that thief.
A slap from a friend is better than a kiss from an enemy. You remember the kiss of Judas Iscariot? Iscariot.
Yes.
Is the one that imetuweka kwa hii mashida yote na mataabu kwa sababu of that kiss. Yet the slap of Jesus Christ when he slapped those guys wenye walikuwa wanauza mboga ndani ya kanisa took them to heaven.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much, Eric, and it's good to be at the Situation Room.
Always a pleasure coming here. This is the most challenging interview panel in Kenya. You guys are very well informed, and as you can see, Charles today, very philosophical.
To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed.
We've just heard on the floor of Parliament, just most recently, a leader within the ODM saying that Sisi ni ng'ombe is a baba.
Yeah.
Which means that you are willing to be milked dry.
Hapo.
You cannot force me to believe. I'll give way. If it's the land that I'm told to return to you, I will. Okay? Because the court has said so. But I'll continue saying, watu wamenirusha. That's all that I'm doing.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's Wednesday, and a little bit of traffic is starting to build up in different parts of the city. We're seeing a little bit here and there on the thicker superhighway. That is normal. We're probably going to see more of it. And yes, the issue on Outer Ring will continue at least until 6 p.m. tonight because it's still being worked on. We're seeing some heavy traffic already on the Eastern Bypass, just around that Utawala area. We know that part of the road is being recarpeted, polished surface, something they're calling it. But it just means that one side of the road is unusable. And it looks like that traffic then seeping in from Imaradaima out towards... Now, this is outbound is also going to be a thing. We're also looking at some traffic coming off of a North Airport Road, and it's going to join with the Eastern Bypass. All right, let us know what's going on where you are this morning. We want to keep things moving. Talk to us on SpiceFM, KE on Twitter.
SpiceFM, Malindi. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up.
At 9 minutes after 6 o'clock, a very good morning to you. How are you doing in your neck of the woods today? Good morning. I hope life is good. I know. Okay, how far? You want this thing? It's falling apart. Sorry. Eric is pointing at me.
What, the headphones are broken?
These ones are not the ones you want to use. Not today.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yep.
Me too.
You two are fine, thank you.
I'm fine, thank you.
Wonderful.
Yes. Yes. City, how are you?
Wonderful.
Even you. You've joined the wonderful gang.
Marvelous.
Very nice.
Stupendous.
Very nice.
One more us.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. City, you met a lady yesterday.
I did. I was coming from a meeting. The meeting ended rather late. I was waiting for my Uber around 7. This lady comes and says, hello.
She said exactly that.
No, that's me.
Oh, okay.
Saying hello. I was mentioned by name. City, how are you? I said, I am very well. And I looked, lo behold, I had no clue
who this person is.
I had no clue whatsoever. But I continued the discussion. Then I said, you will forgive me, but...
who might you be?
You are who? Okay.
How are we conversing?
Yes. Then I was told, well, I know you are... I watch your show every morning. Every morning. I said, thank you so much for watching the show. But I know your colleague, Eriko.
She said Eriko.
She said Eriko. Said, okay, that's good. Said, but... on Friday, my boss is coming to your show. I said, that's really nice. Really, really nice. Then she proceeded to tell me who the boss was, what the boss does. I said, it's good. Africa CDC. I said, that's a wonderful thing, isn't it? And she had this mat. So I said, have you come from the gym? She said, no. Yoga.
Yeah.
She's a yogi.
Yeah, yeni yoga. Yeni yogist.
Yogist.
Yes. So.
Kama weja yoga.
Sauri yako.
Kama weja yoga. Okay.
The lady, if it's the Africa CDC lady, she's called Addis Hiraf.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the Africa CDC boss is getting into the country, and he'll be with us in the Situation Room on Friday. Yes. She told me she was very happy to meet you in person.
In person?
In fact.
You're nice to meet in person.
No, my person was there yesterday. So that's what happened.
Nice, and it was nice to meet you.
Yes.
In fullness of person.
Yes.
Hey. Good thing, man. So now, now that we are starting on a good note, we're going to have a good day, aren't we?
Yes, so atusumbuliwe na mtu.
Kabisa, hii Kenya. Hii Kenya hii.
What? Come what may. No, please.
Hatusumbuliwi, hatutishwi, hatu nini ingine?
Hatudingilishwi.
Kila kitu. Let me tell you what we'll be discussing. So, junior secondary school. Why aren't we calling it junior high?
Some people are. Some people are.
The government knows it as junior secondary.
Say hi.
Junior secondary school. The admissions are going on, and there's all the stories that are coming out. So parents have taken their kids to school. Some are being all told, all right, so you're supposed to have brought this child with new school uniform. Why? Because they're in junior secondary. Okay, why? Because now they're in senior school. Yeah, but there's a class that's above them, the standard dates. And those ones are still wearing the primary school. Yeah, but those ones are not in secondary.
They're not in JSS.
Yes.
There's a class above them that's still wearing the same uniform. They're above them in terms of rank. However, these ones are in high school. You get it? You don't get it?
Forget about it.
I get it.
Yeah? You do get it.
You get it to me get it.
The primary, then the secondary.
There's a secondary.
These ones who are lower than the class 8 are in high school.
New uniform.
Yeah.
Yes. The ones who started after them are now in secondary.
Yes.
The ones who started before
are still in primary.
See, I got this.
You got it, man.
Yes.
3 stars for the gentleman in red.
Very good. So now, we'll have that conversation at 7 o'clock, and we'll be joined by Mudeu Kasanga, who is, of course, an education expert and a member of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance Education Sector Board. She was at one point the chair of the Kenya Private Schools Association. She's been walking the journey of CBC. Bless you, Maja.
Thank you.
Are you,
I'm all right.
Okay. Sete. Yes. Mwambie bless you.
Bless you, sister.
Thank you, brother.
Good. So Mutheo Kasanga joins us at 7 a.m. She will be joined by Nduta Kangede, a.k.a. Jane Mwangi.
I thought you were going to say she's joined by Ndu. I'm like, I'm already here. What is it?
Today we're going to have another Ndu in the studio. Nduta Kangede, she'll be here. She's the head of secretariat at the Kenya Association of International Schools. So Nduta will come and give us the perspective of, she's a very big proponent of CBC. So she'll be giving us a perspective of CBC or curriculum-based education from the international schools perspective, what they've seen and what they've done. So let's have the CBC conversation and the JSS transition conversation at what time?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, women in law and leadership. There's a report that was released yesterday by the Institute for African Women in Law. After extensive research on women in law and leadership in 4 countries, that's Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, and Senegal, to understand women's access to positions of leadership at the bar, in the bench, and academia. Now, Professor Jarpa Dawuni is the founder and executive director of the Institute for African Women in Law. Those ones that did that research. She'll come at 8 to tell us about what? That research story. Sawa. You're only 8 o'clock. Sawa. Sawa. Meanwhile, it is February. It started. You can start singing that song.
Today is February 1st.
Imagine.
Just wait.
Are you sure?
February is that month which has a leap year, isn't it?
Yes.
February is that month. No, the February is that month which makes the year a leap year.
What did I just say?
Yeah. Is there a difference?
It's the month that has a leap year.
Yeah.
Right. This year, is it a leap year this year?
Who knows, man?
How am I supposed to
I'll
know
check
this?
and tell
It
you.
can never be a leap year if it's an odd year.
That's right, actually. So it's not. It's 28. 28 days this month.
So now, tell us about COVID.
Let me do just that. All right. Coronavirus cases around the world. What numbers are we looking at? Over the last 24 hours, we saw an increase, but nothing too, earth-shattering, right? World meters talk about 745 million cases around the world, and 675,213,376. That's what the world numbers are looking like today. The Ministry of Health still continues with its surveillance on COVID and, saying, look, guys, it still remains the same message. Go out and get vaccinated. We're looking at well below 2%. In terms of a positivity rate. Let's look at some things that are moving and shaking in terms of conversations around the world. Hong Kong must act fast in a post-COVID-19 world to regain its place as an international talent hub. This is what is coming out of the Eastern press. Cities need to entice well-qualified entrepreneurs and innovators to drive greener economic growth. And so they're saying, look, coming off the back of the devastation of COVID, Hong Kong is looking at itself as one of those countries that really needs to do what it can to fight back. We saw things like the Hong Kong Sevens that returned after 2 years. We saw international golfing that's to take place. We've seen the Asian tour will come back to Hong Kong in March. So many things lined up, and they're trying to make sure that they do this in an attempt to re-establish themselves as a world destination for a lot of things. All right, so that's interesting coming out of there. The United States is having a bit of a jim jam, and the House has ignored the White House objections and votes to end COVID health emergency status. The House on Tuesday, now you know the House we're talking about, Tuesday ignored opposition from President Joe Biden, and they voted to end the public health emergency related to COVID-19. So stop all this hoo-ha. We're done with this. COVID has come and gone. Let's talk about something else. They've won support from the Democrats on a second bill that would end the government's requirement that federal health workers must be vaccinated against COVID. So remember, all that they could do was say you must be masked up in federal buildings. You as a federal employee, government employee rather, or as well, must be masked, vaccinated, tested, etc., etc. The two bills, the Pandemic is Over Act, interestingly, is what it's called. The Pandemic is Over Act. and the Freedom for Healthcare Workers Act were planned last week. Monday, the White House announced that it will terminate the national COVID emergency on the 11th of May. They've also announced the position to the two bills, and they're going to vote on that today. Wednesday. So they're saying, you know what? Thank you very much. We've done is enough. Let's do something else. And they've actually gone ahead and named the act and the bills after what they want. Pandemic is Over Act, Freedom for Healthcare Workers Act. Into business. Let's move.
Higher. 20 after 6. Happy February, everybody. Where are you tuned in from? Let us know. Get onto our social media handles, SpiceFM KE on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram as well. And just do the roll call. Tell us where you are and how the weather is. Let's take a look at the weather forecast. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
When you're impeached, you're impeached. When you're sentenced, you're sentenced.
Madam Chief Justice.
Until the sentence is set aside. Ukibeba vitu kwa roho utakufa. If you carry things in your heart, you will die.
You've had the luxury of living for 50 years and you cannot still explain yourself. Surely. Oh my God.
The reason for which you went to school and then gathered experience, that reason must be paid for.
All right.
Oh, okay.
DC level.
Shape up or ship out.
Levels don't change.
No.
Since about shipping up.
You know my business partner here.
Shipping out.
Are we talking about the sheep in the bathtub? Or
the sheep man.
Emmanuel Talabu used to tell us a story of they were in school and they'd been told to write composition about a sheep. His classmate raises a hand. Teacher, are you talking about the sheep or sheep goat?
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 17. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 15. It's 15 and cloudy in Nakuru. We'll see highs of 30 today. 28 will be the high in a partly cloudy Nyeri at 13. And it's 12 and cloudy in Eldoret, going to highs of 28. 25 and mostly cloudy conditions in Mombasa, highs of 32. And we'll see highs of 31 in a cloudy Malindi at 25. 19 and clear in Kisumu. And we'll see 15 and partly cloudy conditions this morning in Kakamega. Looking out into Kampala, it's cloudy at 19, highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 32 in Dar es Salaam, where it is cloudy at 26. 17 and mostly cloudy conditions in Joburg, highs of 23, and we'll see highs of 34, partly cloudy in Lagos at 26. It's 23 and cloudy in Kinshasa, highs of 32. Looking out into Beijing, it's 1 degree going into Wednesday afternoon, highs of 4 and lows of -7. It's cloudy at 8 in Paris with highs of 9. We'll see lows of 5. 6 degrees and cloudy in London, highs of 10 and lows of 6. And 1 degree and cloudy in New York, cold temperatures of -1 and highs of 4.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
All right, 24
Nairobi.
after 6.
All right, let's look at the headlines.
No.
It's not me.
Do like that
I'm
thing.
just going very fast. Good morning, everybody. Hey, okay. Don Sabo says, what? It's the end of January at last. The cost of living is far higher than 150 days before. As we negotiate steamer bills on the roof, legalize all the illegal. Welcome February. He said somebody's not meeting the part of their bargain. Ooh-wee. Sorry. Dr. Smash says, good morning. Tuning in from Makongeni. Well represented. Good morning from County 001. Great day ahead to you guys and to you, Jane Duta. Infinity says, good morning. Enjoying the greatest morning show from the greatest university of Embu. Well, all right then. Leonard Gathu says, good morning. Listening in from Pangani and in Singapore. That's where Monis Janeth is. Good morning to you, Monis. Collins Mugera is tuned in from Garissa County, Karibu Sana, and Phineas Kaberia is tuned in. That's the one who's tuned in from the greatest university of Embu.
Yeah.
All right. General Issa Mavenge is tuned in from Muscat. You know where Muscat is?
Mm.
Where? Utawala.
Middle East. Direction, Middle East.
Kwa Muskiti.
Middle East.
Muscat is in Oman. Yes, good to have you in from Oman. Tom Owiti says he's doing marvelous, just like UCT. Did you say stupendous or marvelous? Stupendous. One of the us's. Well done. Odero Jr. is tuned in from the Great Wall of Kino. And Jambo and Habari from Miami Beach, Florida, to you in the studio. Well, Jambo and Habari to you under a coconut tree and those things. Collins Kipsat says, hey, good morning. Good to see you. Good to see you too. Waterman Jeffrey tuned in from Minneapolis. I hear it is crazy cold in the northeastern states of the US.
My friend, minus.
Oh, more daddy. Minus 17,
Just minus
18.
cold.
Minus
Yes.
cold.
I have a relative who lives
in Minneapolis.
Those sites. And he even
northeastern states.
He sent me a picture. Minus 14.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got some pictures too. The folks are not enjoying the thing. It's very cold.
It's frozen even in Texas.
Imagine where they never see snow. Balmy California is cold. Zachary Kikonyo says good morning. He says, welcome to February. By the way, did you guys know that I'm also a lover of the guitar just like the late Mr. Magoha? Okay. Well, I again say that everyone must pay tax, just like I do. Okay. He's not in Minnesota. He's in Gatondo South. And he says good morning to all of you. George Machuki is tuned in from... Do you say Machuki or Machuki?
Whichever.
Okay, so. And Okwiri Shadrach says good morning. Gulu, Northern Uganda. Akiki Samuel says good morning. I love the vibe. Thank you for joining us. We see you all. Karibuni sana.
Everybody, welcome. City?
Yes.
Still in the Windhoek.
We are still in the country of Namibia. An old monkey never forgets to climb trees.
An old monkey never forgets to climb trees.
Yes. It reminds me of a saying.
Can't teach you not.
Yes. It's close. Can't teach a dog old tricks.
Can't teach an old dog new tricks.
What did I say?
I don't know what you were saying, but yeah.
Did I mention
Can't teach
dog?
a dog
And
old
tricks.
tricks. And
Did I mention tricks?
You did. So what's the problem?
And did you say old?
Did I say old?
And new.
And new. So
Yes.
where's the
What's the
problem?
problem?
No, but
That's all you need, boss. They're all there.
yes, they're all
know.
there.
Yeah.
Now you rearrange it to suit your purposes. But they're all there. The thing that came to mind was that even old cats drink milk.
City.
You.
Yes,
Even old cats drink milk.
Sawa basi.
Sawa.
Sawa.
Tumekuonea 18. We mzee. Tunakuonea 18. Tunakuonea 18.
mnaniona hivi Okay.
Haya, let's look at the newspaper headlines. What's on the front pages?
On the front page of the Standard, politics of stack.
Off.
Politics of tax suck in the mighty. I don't like this thing. Why are we talking about tax? And that's not the issue.
Well, so you first read the headlines.
Sorry, that's the headline. Also, on the front page, junior secondary kicks off amid anxiety. It still is an issue. Teachers storm employer's office to seek transfers. The employer is the TSC, just in case you didn't know. And Uhuru takes a jibe at Kenya Kwanza. He said, we talk less, but we performed. That's what he said. So,
They did, eh?
On the Daily Nation, were 15 billion shillings graft tax cases hot air? The DPP says charges were dropped for failing threshold test of prosecution. Another thing I don't like, but okay. Focus on service delivery also is on the front page of the Nation. Uhuru tells Ruto as he mourns Magoha. The papal visit, Pope Francis starts a Central Africa tour. He was yesterday in the Republic of Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and goes to South Sudan today. Showdown looms in Parliament over House plan for CSs. That'll be interesting to see. And Chebukati says to Raila, produce the video or I will sue you.
Produce video.
Or I sue you.
Kipate. Twende kotini. Sue in court.
On the back page of the Nation, MPs bristling for a fight over House plan for Ruto ministers. That's the CS story.
Over what?
Look at that. Over plan for Ruto's ministers. President's allies want lawmakers allowed to summon CSs. Opposition legislators are resisting.
Oh.
You get it?
All right.
Okay.
All right. City.
Yes, please.
See you like that. The Business Daily. Tell us what's on the headline.
No, you read.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Me, I'm going to read what's in the headline.
He wants to read the right-hand corner of the
Star.
Yes.
Up there.
Yeah.
Tell us then.
Ruto allies demand tax audit of Kenyatta firms. Brookside, NCBA, NK, and Safaricom 5G deals among those they want scrutinized. Right. That's headline. Then, bottom, huge picture, former president, former first lady, at the late Professor Magoha's home. Uhuru former cabinet paid their respects to departed Magoha. Now, right-hand corner of the star in green, Ruto's grand plan to build 263 dams and to revive Aror and Kimorer.
Oh, God.
200 and how many dams?
63.
In Kenya?
In 6 months' time.
No, folks.
6 months haijaisha simu.
Folks.
Bado.
Okay, so.
Simu inakuja. Simu. Inakuja.
By the way, there's a whole list of them.
Of the dams?
Yes.
You'll tell us about
and
that.
Even the costs.
For each.
Long list.
Very good. Higher. The Business Daily, front page. Drivers to pay daily congestion charge in war against pollution. Motorists will pay a traffic congestion charge and companies hit with a new tax for every ton of carbon emitted from their plants if a government proposal to protect the environment is adopted. Ateatia. Under the plan, the state is seeking the introduction of a congestion charge, a fee charged on cars driven in zones marked as heavy traffic areas, such as CBD. So, the government creates traffic, and then you pay.
You pay.
They designate an area as heavy traffic area, and you pay a congestion charge. I don't know, I'll tell you more about it. So it sounds interesting. Home prices see biggest fall in 4 years as mortgage rates rise. Data by the Realtor House Consult shows the price of an average house within the city fell 2.2%, marking the first contraction since June 2020. Higher. There's been plans for the government to go government to government and order mafuta, yagari, oil. Okay? That plan is being delayed. A plan to drop the current fuel import plan through an open tender in favor of a government-to-government deal is exposing consumers to expensive fuel in the coming months after a failure to materialize on time. Yeah.
Okay.
Several other things. There was Uhuru basically says there's a time, 2 times, when Magoha came and threatened to quit his cabinet. I am going.
I'm not doing again.
Hey, Magoha, son of Magoha, I am not going to do this thing anymore. Yeah. Says that was underlying the reputation as perhaps the most principled of the ministers that served in the Uhuru government. 27 minutes to 7. Let's take a traffic break and then we will come back and look at the newspaper headlines in detail. Eastern Bypass, they're still recarpeting their carpet.
Where they were yesterday is where they still are today.
Okay.
So it's going to be epic.
Okay. Let's look at that shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
I know the sun is out in Nairobi at least. As you tembea, be careful. Manchester United are trying to sign anyone. Watch out where your children are. Please hide yourselves.
Sugar and spice.
I reached a point where suicide things were just going south completely. Something stopped me.
Nairobi.
It is. There's traffic still continuing on the Eastern Bypass as they're sorting out that whole area going just past Utawala, and traffic has already begun. Folks are moving slowly. We know that's going to be an issue. They say they'll be done by 6 p.m. tonight. Fingers crossed. Knock on wood. Let's wait and see how that goes. If you don't have to use that area, please try to avoid it because folks who live in that area definitely have to. Coming off the Thika Superhighway, we're looking at traffic that's coming into the CBD. Folks are using the service lanes to get into the city faster, so you might want to consider that as well. Or, just keep on going where you are. We'll see that build up closer to 7. It's also busy coming off Kiambu Road. We're looking at some traffic there has built up a little bit as you're heading towards the DCI. All right, what else do we see? Coming out of Westlands, it started to do the thing on James Gishuru. Further ahead, coming out of Loresho Estate. We see that traffic is also building. It's building. Traffic is going to do the thing this morning, so just keep your wits about, folks. Let's see what happens in about half hour when things are getting into full swing proper. Talk to us, SpiceFM, KE on Twitter.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
For a fight.
Bristling. I love that word. So, the nation is calling it a political shakedown is looming at the National Assembly. Dun, 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 dun.
Bam.
Now, lawmakers are resuming next week, right? They've been on recess kind of thing. After they've gone to Mombasa, they've gotten this induction by the KSG, etc., etc. They're coming back now to actually do the work for which they were elected. Now, President William Ruto, it is said, is pushing for the speedy formulation of a framework that will allow CSs to answer questions in Parliament. You have a question, bring the CS, let him then or her be asked these questions by the House, and then you can get, what it is that you're looking for, then you form your movement later, right? Now, while President Ruto and his allies are proposing to amend Parliament standing orders to allow CSs to answer questions to boost, number one, accountability, opposition MPs are of the opinion that it is a departure from the country's governance structure unless the constitution is changed. Okay? This is the way we govern. This is the way we do things. Now, you people want to come and bring about a change. If you want to do that, then you're going to have to amend the constitution. Don't just come and say, do things anyhow. No. You want to pass a bill, slip things under the door? We're not going to allow it. You want to bring about that change in the way in which we govern? Amend the constitution. Don't just come and talk to us like that. They said no. Now, the way things currently stand, CSs can only be summoned by committees to answer questions, but not in the plenary. Not just everybody's there and then you come and answer. No. Before the committees is how it's done right now. President Ruto, who was once again, who has also now defended his position, said the framework will enhance parliamentary effectiveness and facilitate good governance. I mean, what is the problem? We're debating an issue, bring the fellow or the lady.
Let the person come and answer questions.
Tell her an answer. Why do you have to wait for the committee? It would enhance effectiveness and proper governance. They said, in keeping with the commitment to enhancing government accountability, I have formally requested Parliament to formulate within its procedures a mechanism for Cabinet Secretaries to appear before the House and give account to the people's representatives, being the members of Parliament. They said no. Basically.
So who's saying no? The minority side?
Opposition.
The minority?
Yes.
The minority was pushing for BBI in the last one. And the BBI had the same kind of thing. I remember when we spoke with the former Speaker of the National Assembly, who's now the Attorney General, when he was here and he told us one of the biggest things that they're facing is that the fact that MPs feel like the government is not answerable directly to them. When a committee writes to someone, a minister will take forever to come, or minister will say this and the other, they'll send a PS, but this one they want a minister to be coming to the floor, on the floor of the House. I just don't know. It just I look at it and see they should make do with what is happening now. Having a minister to come there and answer. You know how question time goes in Parliament.
How exactly is that going to change anything?
Question time is just a place. So, member of Parliament, member for Kimilili. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask question number 333 on the order paper. And the question is to the minister, blah, blah, blah. Then the minister stands to respond. Minister, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to respond to question blah, blah, blah on the order paper. Mr. Speaker, yes, I am aware that there is a road between Kimilili and Kiminini. I am also aware that this road has not been completed. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to inform the House that the completion of the road is ongoing. In fact, this time we are putting it in the budget for the next financial year.
In fact,
it's on the ground.
We've done something that has not been done before.
Yes.
We brought Kura, Kenha together.
And we want to invite the Honourable Member
Yes.
to come for the next meeting, which will be on Thursday.
And yes, in addition, we've also asked the media to attend so that everybody can know what is.
And then, Member for Community, would you like to respond? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't like what the Minister is saying. Is the Minister saying that I should go for the meeting to take place? Mr. Speaker, sir, that is not what I said. I was just merely waste time.
How exactly does that change anything? How?
It's waste of time. Waste of time. And you will never get ministers to answer all questions from the 290 constituencies so that all MPs can feel that they have been done what? They have been represented. Waste of time. Just like this other story of politics of tax sucking the mighty. It's on page 4 of the Standard and page what again of the...
And the Star is headline.
The headline in the Star. Taxes and taxation has always been a hot potato in any political dispensation. More often than not, those in power are always seen as burdening the populace that's always reluctant to pay new levies. The president has pegged his administration's delivery of services on an ambitious budget that he wants taxpayers to fund and no debt. This ruckus has roped in former President Uhuru Kenyatta, with Ruto claiming his regime was made up of tax cheats and he's going to push them to pay their fair share of levies. Kenyatta, though, seems unbothered by the insinuation, saying those who have nothing to do will always be the loudest. The other story there, Ruto trains guns on Uhuru in push for strict tax reforms. What's the story in the Star?
Story is Ruto allies demand tax audit of Kenyatta firms.
Politics of tax sucking the mighty.
Yeah. So tax this and so now we have moved, and then there's also Chebukati now who was written to Raila and told him this and the other. Raila was speaking in Abuja yesterday. He was addressing an elections conference in Abuja. You know what he told them? My friends, as you go to your election later this month, please do not benchmark with Kenya. Kenyans don't have elections. It's a sham. Just do your elections, please. Do not even bother. In fact, I'm adding there. I don't even know why you invited me. Because, really, if you're not benchmarking with Kenya, why invite a presidential candidate from the last concluded election? This whole hula baloo, like you're saying,
Nonsense. We're talking about some tax nonsense here, back and forth, and that's the conversation. Everybody wants to now see, those who are not paying tax are doing what? The cost of living is still an issue. Nobody wants to talk about it. And that is the thing that's front and center on the minds of 50 million Kenyans. That is the thing. And we're not just talking about food on the table. We're talking about everything that has to do with you and your livelihood. Transport to food, education, health, breathing. At some point, it's going to be breathing, man. It's going to be difficult to breathe. Cost of living through the roof.
Correctly put it, that matter hasn't even been talked about.
It's not been discussed.
Everything and anything is being discussed except...
All of these things are a smokescreen for the real issue here. The real issue is that Kenyans cannot afford life.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to talk about it. We're talking about some things that, truth be told, don't matter.
That drought that engulfed some 13 counties.
23.
It has not.
It's gone 23.
It has not moved. It is still here.
23.
Yes. Half of the country is facing drought. Okay?
God Almighty.
And this is it. What we are now being made to discuss is this whole issue of tax, this and the other. And I think we are being managed.
Yes, we are. If we're not discussing tax, we're discussing Jacaranda.
Yeah.
If we're not discussing Jacaranda, we're discussing Chebukati
and the elections.
The announcements. And yes.
Or whistleblower.
Why are these? How pertinent are these issues against this backdrop of the hunger people are facing, the uncertainty that the bulk of Kenyans are actually encountering? How exactly is this relevant?
It isn't. And that's just the case.
We are being managed.
Yes, properly.
By those in political positions. Both of them. By the way, both sides. The side of Azimio and the side of Kenya Kwanza. Those leaders. Call them out, the five. Ruto, Uhuru, Raila, Kalonzo, Martha Karua, Okay, we can put in Musalia Mudavadi there as well. Just for good measure. And Rigathi Gachagua.
Yeah.
Those guys are managing us. They are working in concert. It all started with, the election, blah, 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 blah. It went into, we are going to Kamukunji, you will see. They were told, you go to Kamukunji, we'll see. They went to Kamukunji, we saw. Then we're going now to Jacaranda, you'll see. We go to Jacaranda, you'll see. We have gone to Jacaranda. We mzee, tunakuonea 18. We mzee, tunakuonea 18. Tumekujua sana. Goes, we are being, suddenly, all those things that we could have been talking about now, the things that people were talking about in December, this government of Ruto, what have you done? What are you doing? What are you not doing? Right? The conversation about cost of living. Medeka Linturi in January said, we are going to open importation of maize and rice, and the price of maize flour will drop in February. February starts today.
Yes, it does.
Have you heard anything about Medeka Linturi updating us about maize and the maize arriving and the millers and how the millers are getting the maize and when the price of unga should then start coming down? Zero. We are not. Second thing, we are in February. The government said, through the president himself, that by around February, we'll be distributing subsidized fertilizer and seeds to farmers in preparation for the March long rain season. Are you hearing anything about the distribution of fertilizer and seeds and extension services to the farmers and the preparation for the long rains and what they're doing about it? Zero. We are not focusing on that. Do we know whether actually farmers are receiving fertilizer?
We don't know.
We do not know. Rigathi Gachagua formed a committee headed by the Safaricom boss. It's a fundraiser to mobilize resources to feed Kenyans who are hungry today. What is the progress with feeding Kenyans who are hungry today? Are you hearing anything about that? Zero. What we are now being told is there are people who should pay tax, who are not paying tax, and now they are funding the Jacaranda rallies. And then the people who have nothing to do should just shut up.
And in fact, we're coming for you.
We're coming for you. And then a whole Jacaranda rally is organized. It's actually a Jacaranda concert. I'm calling it a concert. A Sunday afternoon, Kenyans gather at Jacaranda, sing, dance to reggae. People will talk to you about, nafikiri Kenya ni wana Ruto. Amechupukati. Kuna tumekataa, sema tumekataa. Haya, kwenda nyumbani. 6 p.m. everybody goes back home. Monday, back to work. In the whole week, that is a conversation until the next one. Next rally, Jacaranda, Sunday. In fact, the next one they should invite Juliani, the musician.
Do you know what?
Nikonja.
Today is Wednesday. And this is what sickens me. Today is Wednesday. We've been talking about this thing since Friday.
Last month.
The one that was planned for Sunday, we've been talking about it since Thursday, Friday. And then now, on Monday, we came and joined tax story on top.
Yep.
Then Tuesday, we started talking about tax story.
Now it's tax. This week,
now
it's tax.
Meanwhile, the cost of, before you know, February 14th, people will have pressure. February 14th will come. Fuel prices will probably do the thing.
Yep.
By the way,
you
talked about importation of maize.
Yep.
We are importing maize. No, let me restart. We have imported maize. We have imported rice. Okay? Right now, farmers in the Rift Valley are facing a very, very bleak future in this sense. What was supposed to cost 5,500 shillings per bag, I'm talking about maize that is now 4,000.
Yes.
It's like there's a glut. Now, if there is a glut of locally produced maize and you bring in other maizes, okay? What do you think is going to happen to that price?
It's going to
plummet further, precisely.
Yes.
Now, is it not the role of government to protect the farmers? What, in this coming season, if you're that sort of farmer, because they're now hawking their maize.
Yeah.
To anybody who will buy.
Yeah, they're hawking it. Now, you tell me, will you want to plant maize?
Nothing.
And does KRA need advice?
You're not protecting those farmers who have that harvest that was expensive.
Who actually produced this maize, yes.
You've acknowledged that it was expensive because of the cost of fertilizer.
Yes.
You're importing cheaper fertilizer. If you can subsidize at that point, why not subsidize at the point of purchase?
Or better still, now that they produce, why don't you subsidize that maize? Why don't you buy it at a price?
Buy it at a price that then covers that cost. And then say, in future, it's not going to be that expensive because I'm giving you fertilizer this time at 3,500. Okay? That's a conversation we should be having. Are you hearing those conversations? No. We've moved
conversation
from Chebukati for 3 weeks now.
Come on.
And the person who started this, who pressed the button, was the president. And then Raila came in. And then now they started, now it's a back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's all in concert.
And just when you thought that you'd heard the whole story, the deputy president talks about bars.
Yes.
Now that's a whole conversation. Did he say 1 bar per town? Did he say 1 bar for the country?
Then
What did he say?
1 town per bar.
Town per bar. What
yes.
is it?
And must the bar be next to a church? Now this conversation is ongoing.
Now let me remind you
Yep.
that because it's good to sync this thing, while all this is happening, somewhere in between, Ministry of Education is trying to make sure that 1 million former class 6s go to grade 7 in high school. Trying to make sure that teachers are hired. Meanwhile, teachers have said, what? Appoint us. You've not appointed us. Appoint us. Has not happened. 6 students are sitting where 4 students used to sit last year. There's not enough in terms of infrastructure. All people are talking about tax and jacaranda. Your children cannot go to school and go to school properly. People cannot afford to eat. These are the things that we're talking about, for which a government has been constitutionally put in place to make sure happen. They are not happening because we're doing a song and dance about tax, who's evading tax.
Sijui nini, sijui that.
By the way,
what did the teachers do, by the way?
Teachers have said, look, they didn't say we are coming. They went to the TSC Masharia's office and said, excuse me.
In Upper Hill.
Excuse me. This is a bit too much.
These are trained teachers, not hired.
Trained teachers who have also worked previously and then were supposed to have been transferred according to an agreement. It has not happened. They've been waiting, being told, okay, so you know what they said? Thank you very much. We went to the office. More than 200 of them, specifically from West Pokot and Trans Nzoia, marched to offices to demand their transfers. The primary school teachers protested that delocalization had been abolished, yet TSC had denied them transfer to their counties. So we can actually work at home. This has not happened. You people are focusing on hiring the 35,000, which you actually have not hired, and you've not sent them to the schools where they're much needed. Meanwhile, you're here telling us that somebody who is from West Pokot should go and work in Kwale. Why are you doing
They want localization?
Yes. They were turned away by the officials and insisted that they should go back to their working stations. Go back to work, we'll call you. They said no. If the teachers accused the TSC of refusal to effect their transfers despite the government scrapping the delocalization program. Other teachers in other counties have been moved back to their home county, yet TSC has refused to let us go back to our home county. They allege that delocalization had fueled, now get this, family separation, arguing that moving them back home will fix the problem. Now our families are even breaking. Wives and husbands are not understanding. Now do you see what you're doing?
Mambo mingi.
Sana.
Let me tell you something else. So the government, in its infinite wisdom, looked at how we import fuel, right? So you know that open tender system, oil marketers come and they bid, and then one wins the tender, imports for the industry. The government said, all right, how about if we actually go to these countries that are oil producing countries, and government-to-government arrangements are made. So, for example, you go to Saudi Arabia and you agree with Saudi Arabia, we are going to be taking petroleum from you if you just give it to us at this price. And you agree on that, and then now the whole thing now comes into who transports the oil to Kenya, who then distributes, okay? That was a conversation that was supposed to happen. It was supposed to benefit us from March, so that the oil that arrives in March is actually a government-to-government kind of deal. That has delayed. Now, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority has written to the parent Ministry of Energy and Petroleum and telling them, okay, now that delay, by the way, is going to lead into problems. I have not, as IPRA, called oil marketing companies to do the tender for importation of oil. Because of the short timelines, if I call them today, the oil marketing companies that come to bid will have to quote higher because of insurance costs and high freight costs, because of poor planning, short timelines for delivery. That is going to affect the price or the cost of the landed product in Mombasa, which will make the cost at the pump much higher. This is what's going to happen because we have not moved. And so the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority is basically asking the government, if we don't do anything soon, if we don't make it, IPRA notes the delay has occasioned very tight import timelines, which, if no action is immediately taken, may result in high rates of cargo premiums and freight. As a result, pump prices would be negatively impacted. Kwisha. This is for March. So you can clearly see in March, bei ya mafuta itapanda. Why? Because, government to government, OTS,
Isn't there a lot really happening around us here? And this a lot that is happening doesn't relate directly to the issues that are bedeviling the majority of Kenyans. Of what use is it to have all these high-flying ideas and these grand plans when people are not able to eat? Did you know, I'm going to change topic completely.
Tell us.
Did you know that books can be considered a luxury item?
Books, the one we read anyhow.
Books. Now, something interesting happened in Egypt because of the inflation. We touched on it last week. But now, because the cost of paper that is used for publishing books has shot up, something like 4 times, in Egypt, people are being allowed to buy books in installments of up to 9 months. A book. Writers are now shortening the publications that they had so that, one, it consumes fewer pages and also that it costs less. Now, that is inflation and what it is doing. Who would have thought? Because people understand, if you want to buy a washing machine, yes, in installments. You want to buy a TV installment.
Now you're buying a book. In installments.
A book. Remember we mentioned this sometimes.
Buy now, pay later.
Yes. That the sort of the inflation that is being experienced in Egypt is the sort that brings about problems. Now you see, I'm mentioning Egypt because we are not different.
Yeah.
Every waking day, there is talk about the focus on the common citizen, and yet the prices of things keep going up. We are either talking about a new tax regime that is supposed to be brought in. We are talking about a bill that is supposed to introduce a new tax. We are talking about stamp duty and the cost of the stamp duty going up 4 times. Meaning, at every turn, there is a net increase in the cost of everything that we have. And yet, as we speak, before even those costs arrive at our doorstep, people can't afford to live on a daily basis.
Yeah. And it's going to get tougher.
It's going to get rougher. It's going to get rougher. And amidst all this, to make it really the theater of the absurd and the bizarre, you look at the headline in The Nation, where 15 billion graft tax cases hot air. People, money, billion.
There were cases in court and then they were just dropped.
In fact, calling it hot air, it's actually smoke. It went poof.
That was it,
That was it.
Because isn't that it? 7.3 billion dropped, 2.2 billion dropped, 1.9 billion dropped, 1.5 billion dropped, 1.1 billion dropped, 588 million dropped, 400 million dropped, 20 million dropped, 19 million dropped. So the question is, when you were bringing these cases before court, I continue to ask. Did you not have what you would have called insurmountable evidence? Tight, watertight. All those words they use.
Yeah.
Bring it before until people are even charged. The threshold of evidence was met.
I think these people whose cases have been dropped should now countersue.
Yes.
Yeah. There was an
Drag
abuse.
my name through the mud.
Yeah. There was
Because
abuse
as far as
of the
you're
judicial
concerned in this
process.
country, once you are accused, you're guilty.
That's it. Kwanzaa, the manner in which the arrests were made, the announcements were made.
Or the drama behind it was actually intense.
Complete. And then now you come and say, oh, there was insufficient evidence. What do you mean? But you said, your statement at that point said, we have sufficient evidence to show, to prove that this person was responsible for the loss of this amount of money, of taxpayers' money. And now you tell us it's not. Higher. So grade 7s are going into school now for the 3rd day. Yeah. So what's happening in that? Are there teachers? Are there labs? Are they wearing new uniform? What's a new uniform like? Is it?
Depends on what school you are.
Okay, there are children who want to shift schools, and then there's schools are saying, okay, I cannot accommodate any more students here. What's happening? That's the conversation we want to have in the next hour. Meanwhile, grab your Minute Maid, because we'll be telling you more about how to take a break and enjoy Minute Maid. Good morning. It is 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. SpiceFM, Nakuru.
When you're impeached, you're impeached. When you're sentenced, you're sentenced.
Madam Chief Justice.
Until the sentence is set aside.
Ukibeba vitu kwa roho utakufa. If you carry things in your heart, you will die.
You've had the luxury of living for 50 years and you cannot still explain yourself. Surely. Oh my God.
The reason for which you went to school and then gathered experience, that reason must be paid for.
All right.
Oh, okay.
This level.
Shape up or ship out.
Levels don't change.
No.
Since about shipping up.
You know my business partner here.
Shipping out.
Are we talking about the ship in the bathtub? Or
the ship man.
Emmanuel Talabu used to tell us a story of they were in school and then been told to write composition about a ship. His classmate raises a hand. Teacher, are you talking about the ship or a ship goat?
The Situation Room.
Thika Superhighway coming into the city, quite some traffic, and we're looking at that coming in all the way through Kasarani, out through Clayworks, and then past GSU. You're going to get to Survey and then through to the Pangani underpass, and traffic continues there. It's busy coming out of Waiyaki Way, and we're looking at traffic on Uhuru Highway all the way from the Nyayo Stadium roundabout into the city, out towards Westlands. It's madness. It's like somebody, this Eastern Bypass aching finger has spread through the rest of the city, because there it is, heavy traffic. It looks like in and outbound traffic, but it's actually just inbound. Folks are trying to get either through to the Embakasi stage or then out to connect to Manyanja Road. So it looks really messy. Again, if you're not the folks who are living in this area and you don't have to be here, use the longer route, but you will not be stuck in this traffic. It's what lies ahead. It's going to be there for the rest of today. We already know this. Okay, what else is happening? Gong Road traffic is doing the business. We're seeing some coming in from Naivasha Road. So continues this morning. So we're into traffic hour proper already, even before 7:30. Let's keep an eye on things. What's going on with you? Talk to us. Ooh, there was a bad accident to Mombasa Road, guys. Approaching Cabanas. Truck has overturned. Avoid that or slow down just a little bit as you get there. Okay? Let's talk in a bit.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
4 minutes after 7. Good morning and welcome to the second hour of The Situation Room. Happy February. We are on to the second month of the year. Just like that, January is done. We are on to Feb, and then it'll be New Year again. And the year keeps
Christmas
moving.
First, let's do Christmas first.
So then we start with the Valentine.
Vala what?
Oh, you see? Or Easter then. Easter is better?
Yes.
Okay. Easter is better. So we'll do Easter.
Remember Jesus.
How about Madaraka Day?
Jesus first.
And Labor Day.
All right, while we are at it,
Yeah.
surely. Shujaa Day.
Mashujaa Day.
Utamaduni Day.
Yeah. Utamaduni at
And
the
in
end of the
between,
year.
World AIDS Day.
Yeah. Uko. Kila siku tu.
International Women's Day.
See?
Kumbe, you know all
And the
those
beat
days.
goes on.
Doesn't it just?
Kumbe, you know all those days.
There's a day for everything. Like today, if you check this, today's a day.
There's
And I'm gonna
today's
find
day.
out and tell you.
Today's day. Junior secondary school kicks off amid anxiety. Grade 7 learners are beginning to settle down in their new classes, with many schools reporting high turnout. However, most parents were yet to buy new uniforms for a junior secondary level and conform to new guidelines issued by the Education Ministry. What does that mean, Ndu?
It means that we're in a mess of untold proportion.
Aye.
Yes.
Don't be so dramatic.
Even I think
Hey.
that is a bit dramatic.
Hey.
And it's still January, no?
No, it's not.
It's early in the morning.
Okay,
It's early in the
sorry.
morning.
Let's wait until 11 o'clock
When
and then
I
we
get
can
up,
say
yeah, then
it
we
is
can-
a mess. Okay, so for now, it's okay. Around 11:30, call us back here. Let's tell
There are
you.
all signs of a mess, but it's not yet a mess.
No.
Okay,
So there, and Duta said, it's still early.
It's still
Don't
early.
say things with such catastrophic meaning at this hour.
Kawa, we have two guests in the studio, Duta Kangede, in brackets, Jane Mwangi, and Mudheo Kasanga. They're here to talk about this transition into junior secondary and the CBC and everything. But how we welcome our guests is with the day's proverb.
Yes. Our Proverbs for the whole of this week come from the country of Namibia. An old monkey never forgets to climb trees.
An old monkey
Yes.
never forgets to climb trees.
Yes, the operative word here is monkey, not old. Yes.
To climb trees, as in something that you must do as of duty, or how to in terms of knowledge.
Old. Old. Did I say I participated in making this proverb?
I'm asking a question.
No. Did I not just read the proverb?
Okay, sorry. No
Okay.
thanks, I beg.
But anyway, now ask the question. What were you asking?
An old monkey never forgets to climb trees. It says pointing towards duty, to as in you must climb a tree in order to get something else done. So you never forget how to do it. Or is it saying how to climb trees in terms of knowledge? That is something that you do on a regular, so you never really forget how to do it. Could be one of the two, isn't it?
You know, climbing trees for monkeys, from what I've observed from National Geographic, is they tend to live up on those trees.
Second nature.
Yes,
Exactly.
that's city of Nairobi trees for monkeys. Okay, so whether they are going about their daily business of foraging for food, or they're just hanging out, they're in trees. So one doesn't quite forget what one does on a daily basis, just as a matter of course.
Exactly.
Yes,
It's like you don't forget to breathe.
you actually do not forget to breathe. Yes, and if you do, you will remember.
You will die.
Ladies, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mudheo Kasanga has been here before. Mudheo is an education expert.
Yes.
Now you sit on the board of KEPSA's Education Sector Board. You have also sat and led the Kenya Private Schools Association and very many other things. You're an education practitioner.
Yes.
Yeah. Nduta,
Teacher to boot.
and a teacher to boot. That's important.
Yes.
It's very, very important. Duta can explain.
It's really
So the way she sent us the name Duta Kangede and then put in brackets Jane Mwangi.
Okay. So which of the two are your nicknames?
none. All of them are my names.
Yeah.
I'm going to blame that my mother was Catholic, the first instance.
Okay.
The Catholics do like giving people many names. So in between there's Irene. All of them are my names.
Right.
So socially, I am known as Nduta Kangede, and then at work, I'm known as Jane Mwangi. Yes, so really that's it.
Oh, so Jane Mwangi ni jina ya M-Pesa.
Yes.
So ungesema.
Sikuwa nimefikiria it can be that simple.
Okay. Jane is the head of secretariat at the Kenya Association. Sorry, Nduta is the head of secretariat.
No,
You're enjoying-
Irene.
You're enjoying this more than you should.
She's the head of secretariat at the Kenya Association of International Schools. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
CBC gotten to that level where the first cohort has finished with the primary level. They are now going into the second, which is the junior secondary school. Why are you not calling it junior high school? Anyway, the junior secondary school, and we are now observing the transition period. Mwalimu, how's it been?
Surprisingly seamless, given that given that the expectation was like, I don't know, total implosion. Coming of God. You know, like like she says, second coming of God or something. It's just happened, and I think people are a bit disconcerted by Joe. It's just happened. It's just gone on. Of course, parents were very scared of the idea that these kids might have to change schools. So the recommendation of the Working Party that they can't remain in the primary schools they are in as we phase out, because we have two curricula going on. So one is phasing out. So if we had pushed to secondary, that fear of a double intake would have perhaps broken the secondary school system. But all along, the idea of junior secondary, senior secondary is to allow the country to build up infrastructure to catch up with our population growth. And remember, this is not about infrastructure is not about CBC. Infrastructure is simply about our
education
and our population growth.
Population.
Yes, because whether we like it or not, next week is Form 1, you'll still hear about overcrowding. So it's not a CBC issue. We have an infrastructure problem. And that's what needs to be fixed. And I think, my personal opinion here, Nigeria is a country with a massive population, and they have the 633 curriculum. And this is how they did it, expand the primary schools, staff them correctly. So I think we are on the right track here. Yeah, no matter how I think like right now we are all looking for a bit of news. There's not much going on. Jesus. I mean, we are hungry, we are what? So you're looking for news and creating it somehow. The reality on the ground is that actually this thing has worked.
So there's a smooth transition.
There are hitches with redeployment, because I think that TSC has held down too many graduate teachers, and now they're having to go through their records to bring them up. There's about 17% of the total primary school working population in the government side has a qualification above the primary one. The primary one is called a P1 training certificate. Sawa. So many people, 17%, have upgraded themselves. They have got degrees, they have got but they have been kept down in the primary school sector. And this is the population that it is hoped that can now plug in seamlessly into the JSS. And if we do that, imagine this thing will work. And I believe TSC is doing that. I think there are hindrances like in the morning I was reading about delocalization, and then that delocalization is also affected by issues of places that are hard to staff. Do you just remove people you had sent there?
Because
who is going to go there
home.
If there are no teachers there in the first place? They are...
Good opening.
Yes.
Good opening with that.
Yep.
Duta.
Yes.
From what you've heard, is the ground the way Mudeo is actually describing it?
I would say, for me, I agree totally with her, and there are areas that I think could do with some improvement. There was the feeling that we would implode. Actually, let me rephrase that. There was the expectation that we would implode. And I think as Kenyans, we are very unkind to ourselves and very blind to what we deal with. We have 13 million plus children. We are one of the youngest countries in the world. And every year, and when you count our 15-year-olds to our 40-year-olds are fertile. So every year, more getting born. So that system will keep getting overloaded unless we can talk. So JSS was the real 2023, whether we had said it is domiciled in primary school or said it will go to secondary school. 2023 was always the year that was going to test the patience of Kenyans. It was always going to be that year. I would say that it has gone well. Children are in school. And we also like to forget the resilience of our teachers. These people do know what they are doing. They really do know what they are doing. These are the same children they have managed years on end. All that is required is a lot of retooling. We speak from experience. And a lot of patience. Will it be perfect? No. Will you get to some places where there'll be no books because they've not learned it? Yes. Are there teachers who are yet to quite be trained because we use a cascade model? Yes. But is it a massive failure? No. If I was even to grade it on a scale of 0 to 10, I would give it maybe a 6. And say there is room for improvement. We're also missing what this transition will do for us. We have 21% of children or more who go to secondary school boarding. I think that's one of the highest in the world. It is not okay. It is time we started thinking about our children being home with their parents. And JSS is providing that opportunity because with time I anticipate that while it is domiciled in primary schools, it will also be domiciled in day secondary schools. And with time, perhaps maybe another 3 years, they will require that boarding schools establish day wings. And that is a step in the right direction for us as a country because we are young. We ought to embrace proximity. Let people go to school and go back home to their parents. And for those ones who choose boarding schools, let them make that choice. Or for those ones who need them, like Northeastern and places like that, then let them do that. But it is time we had that conversation, and JSS is doing that. And then to speak to structure, I think one of the greatest things that has happened is that JSS was retained as a secondary level. So there is the feeling, there's a misunderstanding that because it is domiciled in primary schools, it's a primary level of education. No, it is secondary level, and that is important. That is very good for us as a country. It is how countries like Thailand, when they did that, it is how they transformed. You've always had that myth that we were at one time we were at par with Singapore, we were developing the same. That is again a myth, it is in our heads. What Singapore did was transform their education. They dealt with their human capital so that they lessened their years of primary school, increased their years of secondary school, because it is at that level that you begin to get, that you introduce high order thinking skills, that children have access to a broad curriculum, get to know themselves, get to know what they can do, what they cannot do. A country begins to plan around, this is what we need in terms of skills, this is what we have at the moment, this is what we are doing. So it is good that we have increased and retained JSS as a secondary level of education. It is not perfect, in my opinion, and this is just me as a person. Communication, for me, is always where I feel government drops the ball. Because if you look at the guidelines, they are robust. They are fantastic. I brought you a copy. They are really good. They address everything. But the question is always, who knows?
Let me ask you that. Do go ahead.
Yeah, I think...
Who knows?
Sure. One thing that we talk about the structure, and for me, that presents an issue.
Okay.
I think it's fantastic that this is actually happening, to spread out the years of a secondary education, again, because that's where you hone in on those particular skills when it comes to socialization of a child. Now, the infrastructure that is necessary to deliver this education at a secondary level, unfortunately, is not at the primary school level where this JSS is domiciled, is it?
I will say this, sir. It is again not as bad as we imagine. Let me speak for public sector. Much as after this, I may then go and have a compliance issue. Maybe this will help. Anyway, it's tongue in cheek. Anyway, so 50% or maybe 55% of primary schools have a secondary school next to them.
Yes.
So let me use the school I went to high school. I went to St. Anne's Leoki. St. Anne's Leoki High School, there is Leoki Primary. They share a compound. That is about maybe 40 to 50% of our schools. So they can use the facilities in the secondary school,
which are being used by
the secondary school
yes,
students.
and it works. It works. And I'm not saying that to downplay a situation. Really does work. We have, and then you must consider that there are areas in this country that because people did not want to go to day schools, they are thoroughly undersubscribed. There are those ones that are very crowded, and then there are those ones where, they are not enough. And then planning is a thing. Let me use our schools as an example. If you come to the campus I sit in, Braeburn, Gitanga Road, we have maybe 700 children on that campus, or 600, from babies to A-level. We do not build a lab for A-level, a lab for O-level, a lab for... We share facilities. You plan around it. You timetable, and it works. That is the level of organization that we are expecting to see with JSS. Now, if it is not happening, and I think that this is where the fourth estate comes in, because that is what we must check. We must go and actually make sure that it is happening, that timetabling is happening correctly, these children can access, and so on and so forth. The other thing we should concern ourselves with is who is teaching, because that question seems to get lost somewhere, is who is teaching this curriculum.
Who should be teaching this curriculum? Let's start there.
Muteu described it really well. She said a graduate teacher in primary can deliver this curriculum. I believe the same. Or a secondary school teacher can deliver that curriculum. I believe that is also the case. I don't think a P1 teacher can teach JSS. Actually, let me rephrase that. I know.
Cannot teach JSS.
No.
Why?
Because we did not, we played with that curriculum for teacher. We just didn't train to deliver.
It's that they haven't been trained? Or is that they lack the aptitude?
No, it is not a lack.
Let me
explain.
explain.
Yes.
The teacher training is level specific, okay? And before CBC, we had what we call the P1 certificate. It is a certificate course, yeah? And certificate courses were designed to teach in early years and in primary. That's it. Their content, their pedagogy, absolutely everything in there was meant for primary. We had a diploma for secondary and degree for secondary. It was called the DTE, Diploma in Teaching. And that diploma in teaching was crafted for teachers to teach in secondary. So you get your 2 teaching subjects. Secondary school teachers typically teach 2 subject areas and perhaps sport. Sawa. And that is how the teaching qualification is organized in Kenya. So this P1 certificate is not meant for primary. And for secondary, it's not content-wise. That teacher is not equipped. And that is why those who go up and follow up with extra education on their own are now the ones who are being targeted to be redeployed to teach JSS.
That's a rather discriminatory system, isn't it?
No, it's just a simple thing. It isn't.
It works for the levels.
It's levels.
No, it's discriminatory because...
No, it isn't.
It's limiting.
Yeah, but that's the way training in education.
Why must it be so?
The same thing. Let me give you a quick answer. Do you expect a diploma holder to go and lecture first years?
Why not? First years haven't got any qualifications. Why can't a diploma holder? This is somebody who's gone through the system, has learned some more things. Why can't they
teach? If we ever did that, we would be bringing down this country. Teaching is a profession. It's like saying a clinical officer can do a major, neurosurgery, brain surgery. They can't.
Actually, the training doesn't permit. But you see, these are distinct professions. A clinical officer and a nurse are seen as adjuncts to doctors. They are not. They are distinct disciplines on their own.
The same
and
with education.
Trained.
Actually, the same. Primary ECD teacher is a profession. Then primary school teacher, that is a profession.
You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
The age at which a child needs the most critical input. That's the age where you train people the least. Isn't there a problem there?
That is a Kenyan.
It's a Kenyan
issue.
It's a Kenyan issue.
It's not a global issue. That's a Kenyan issue. In fact, if I remember correctly, you guys in your the task force before this, what was it called? Fatuma. Actually discussed that a lot because we do ourselves a great disservice. First and foremost, we have made the teaching profession. We've almost branded it. If you don't do well, by all means, do well. Or
hujapata marks hata ya kukupeleka ECD.
It's a landing place.
Yes, it's a dumping place, and it is sad. Because if you look at countries like Japan, it is actually whatever their A is, they take from the third percentile, the highest one, to teach. But we did that We did that the other way around, and then we reinforced an attitude, and it is not right. So if you come to international schools, for example, or even in other countries, you will have a whole professor doing ECD, and it is fine.
Now you've gotten the point,
yes,
because
and it is okay.
If you're talking about looking into the future and the education system that we have meeting the needs, we had this discussion yesterday. Now, should we then therefore not have a situation where when we even recruit people into the teaching profession, should they not be our best and brightest?
I agree completely. Now, you say that. In fact, let me give you a challenge. I'm sure because you're who you are, you have massive following on social media.
We do.
I assume. Go write that and then tell me the reaction. We have done something about our attitudes.
Yeah.
You will be told you're closing off. You're being, it's the other way around. You'll be seen as discriminatory.
Yeah.
It is the same reason
But
why.
you send an A student to go and become a teacher.
Jesus, you have
You see the reason.
the esteem. What is wrong with
But
it?
we've done something about it. I want to reinforce that because now with the Fatuma Chege report, you know now the minimum entry into the profession. You need to qualify to become a teacher is now diploma. You know,
And
it's
it
a
was
simple.
time.
You know,
It was time.
because in Kenya, like she said, we are a young country. So you can't, the attempt to even raise the bar a little actually caused an implosion of teacher training that this working party is trying to fix. So for us, we have access issues that are, you know, in education, we deal with 4 parameters. We deal with access, equity,
Quality. It's 3. Access, equity,
No, quality and choice, finally.
We agreed. You agreed?
No. I mean, I'm there because why else do we have this standard 8 selection things? It's about choice.
Just choice.
Yeah. So you get to choose your alliance and then you work. KCP is like a massive interview. That's it. It's all purpose is just to slot you into the school you want to be in. So if you want to be in alliance, go do whatever it takes to get there, you know. So we have those 4 parameters that we work with, okay? And the most important is access. And sometimes we for us to have universal education, literally almost have to sacrifice the other 3. Yeah? Think about that child in Maralal, in Mandera and whatnot. At this particular point in time, how many years after independence, we are saying we just want a school first.
Yep.
First put one teacher. We will figure out the rest.
We'll
You
sort
get.
out.
While here in Nairobi, we are hearing stories of people storming TSC, demanding, I want to be removed from that one place where you're most
To be
needed.
brought back to my home.
Yes, I need to be brought. You get. So as long as we are having issues of access, I kid you not, we will first have to work at getting any teacher first in there. We cannot afford to come and say we want only 30 people who got A's to become teachers. First, we want teachers. So we will train whoever needs to be trained to go there. And we will do whatever it takes. I mean, for how many years was there affirmative action for training for northeastern areas? It still has not sorted out the issue of staffing those areas. And here's the problem. When we delocalize teachers and take them there, because we need them there, the youngest kids are the ones who suffer. These kids come in speaking in mother tongue. You bring in somebody from Mukambani and plonk them in Maralal. They can't even understand the child. Exactly. How is this child going to get the foundational skills? Yet we all recognize that teacher must be there because there's no choice. You know, we are caught in an access.
You're damned if you do.
Yeah, damned if you don't. So at the moment, we still need to keep churning out the teachers in huge numbers because we have these access issues 50-something years
down the road.
And they have been proved. Let me tell you, the last 10 years, 13 years, these last 15 years.
What has improved?
The country has phenomenally changed. Number one, the devolution of ECD has put money into nursery schools. There are places that saw a first government nursery school with devolution. Yeah. In 2013, we were talking about 80% ECD being provided by the private sector. We are down to what, 60, 62? That the government is now playing a role. Now we don't have cases of where kids walk into standard 1 and they have never been to school before. So therefore, there's something good happening.
It is slow.
We acknowledge what's happening,
yes,
however slow it is.
we
I want to bring the conversation
take
back
away,
to,
given that we are seeing governors
back to the
rejecting
situation
this room.
on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Children have reported to grade 7.
Yes.
We talked about teachers, we've talked about facilities.
Correct.
Okay, teachers, you've said in the primary schools, about 17% of the teachers in primary school are capable of teaching the junior secondary.
Yes.
17% of the teachers in primary school are capable of teaching the junior secondary. The junior secondary is in 100% of all primary schools. So who's teaching? There is no junior secondary in secondary school, is there?
Not yet.
Okay.
Well, private sectors have.
Private sector is a different story, but,
That's a different
it's
story.
tiny.
That's
It's a
different
tiny
story.
percentage.
So if 100% of the grade 6s have gone to the same school in grade 7, where only 17% of teachers are available to teach them, who's teaching JSS? Number 2, about 50% of schools in Kenya, like you've told us, Duta, have sister primary, sister secondary.
Yes.
50% do not have sister primary, sister secondary. 50% of schools do not have access to labs,
which they need
and there's
at
other
the secondary
facilities.
school level.
What's going to happen with that? Let's take a break. It's 7:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Duta Kang'ethe is the head of secretariat at the Kenya Association of International Schools. She's very passionate about the education sector. Equally passionate is Mudeo Kasanga, who is a member of the KEPSA Education Board and a player in the education sector. Actually, these two have been in this conversation of the rollout of CBC for the last 7 years.
Correct.
So they've been here with it. Duta, you haven't. Yours has been, what, 2.5? No, it's been many.
I would like not to be lumped as the same age as myself.
It's not about age.
I'm playing.
7:30. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
Right.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanyan.
Amen. Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It gets over
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes.
what the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself.
When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, oh, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom?
I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, because if it was a man, but this was a lady.
It will be called First Ladies until you change the name.
Sunny conditions at 17 in Nairobi, highs of 29 and lows of 15. We'll see highs of 30 and lows of 14 in Nakuru. And it's 14 in Nyeri, highs of 28 and lows of 11. We'll see highs of 28 in a sunny Eldoret at 14. And it's partly sunny at 26 in Mombasa. It will go to highs of 32. And we'll see highs of 31 in Malindi, where it's sunny at 25. 20 and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 30 and lows of 19. And it'll go to highs of 31 in Kakamega, where it's sunny at 18. Partly sunny conditions at 21 in Kampala, highs of 28 and lows of 17, and we'll see highs of 32 in Dar es Salaam, where it's sunny at 26. It's 17 and cloudy in Johannesburg, highs of 23 and lows of 16, and partly cloudy at 26 in Lagos, going to highs of 34. Kinshasa will see highs of 32 and lows of 22.
Spice up your life.
All right, so still crazy on the Eastern Bypass this morning, and we're seeing some traffic that's spilling over from that whole Utawala area through to the Eastern Bypass. It's all red this morning, and we already know that it'll be there for some time. Okay, so coming in then from Outer Ring, is going to see that connection then from Baraka, and it's very slow. Folks are trying to get out. It's going to take some time because, of that road repair happening there. Okay, so we're seeing then some spillover towards Manyanja Road, onto Outer Ring, onto Jogo Road, and then it gets busy coming off of the Maradima Drift out into the city via the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. We're looking at the CBD where there's a lot of action happening this morning. It's busy on the Thika Superhighway as it is on Kiambu Road, as well as coming out of Westlands. We're looking at it crazy on James Gishuru and out towards Wayaki Way. So we're in traffic hour proper now. Just a few minutes after 7:30. Let's see what it looks like at about 8, but it's moving in some parts and not in others. Let us know what's going on where you are on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
The conversation continues, so let's address those issues in terms of who's teaching JSS and do we have proper facilities in the JSS?
Well, let me quote the guidelines in terms of where children should go. So these guidelines state, let me just read it out. In high-density areas in urban informal settlements, primary schools with an enrollment of less than 45 learners in the transitioning class, or those lacking the basic facilities to domicile at JSS, will serve as feeder schools to other JSS within a 2-kilometer proximity. In geographically expansive, low-density and insecurity-prone areas, as well as for learners with special needs and disability, the government, through the Ministry of Education, will implement affirmative action as appropriate, regardless of the enrollments in the transitioning class. Now, what we should have had before this was a proper school transport system, because how do these children get to school if they're supposed to feed into this? And I suppose maybe those are some of the issues that the current presidential working party has to develop. Because if you go to every primary school, actually, let me use the example of conferences for heads. Every conference for heads I attend, I get very shocked because I see every school, even the one I didn't imagine, has a bus. But during the day, that bus is packed. Yet that bus, if we pay taxes, should be able to bus children from these feeder schools to the actual JSS. So we have things we need to sort out. And I think that is what we must do. We must really ensure that they are sorted out. Or next year at a time like this, we will be discussing the same issue. And then there's also the small matter of after grade 7 and 8, where will they go? To grade 9. Don't think those classrooms exist or those facilities exist at the moment. So there is that. I will say again, is it perfect? No. Is there a plan? Yes. What is our role in it to ensure that it is actually done by first and foremost ensuring that parents know about this? If it were possible, I would expect that at some point somebody will rock up with a list of which school can offer JSS government, which schools can offer JSS private, so that I know it's the primary school that my child goes to. Is it a feeder school? Can it offer JSS? Things of that nature. That should be, I think, for me, the first thing that should happen. Number 2, I expect that maybe within a month or 2, because now it is late anyway, that somebody will actually tell us the school transport plan. This is how this will work. Your child will go to school. If they have a lab lesson and there is no secondary school near them, but one is close 2 kilometers away, this is how they will get there. Because we are in that season. There are many of us. We have to. It is the only way this will work.
Okay.
As teachers.
So as we speak now, none of that is happening.
I think it is on paper. I haven't seen it happen myself.
Even if you look at it on paper.
In my area, when I spoke to my sub-county director, and I wanted just to see, because the public, there's like, I have in Athi River town itself, there are like 3 public schools, and there's about another 3 big day schools. and
public
secondary.
as well?
These are public. I don't private. I can go there, but let's, because that's where the bulk
Let's
of our
deal with
population.
our
That's
public.
where when we ask ourselves what is happening, actually our minds are imagining what our public schools look like and what is going on. And one of the public schools is massive. It's called KMC Primary, and it used to hold, do you remember people who used to be called tax tutors and tax centers? These are advisory centers where teachers meet and get resources and get ideas and things like that. And the school managed to mobilize, I think one of the other schools actually managed to mobilize and convert some of these rooms that ceased to be used as whatever into, the digital devices and whatnot. And they have got SEPU, the School Equipment Production Unit, to sort of start facilitating these. They are called mobile labs. Yes, they are called mobile labs. And these are demonstration. You get a complete kit that allows a teacher to do things with the sciences in a class. And these things have been here. This is not a reinvention of the wheel here we are talking about. This unit has been here forever. And if you went to school like me a while ago, you remember they're the ones who used to supply us with pencils and books and exercise books. Those days, all books used to be labeled SEP. Way back when. Nyayo time. So these units are actually being rolled out, and I've seen a good number of private schools as well, especially the urban high density where land is not available, using these units. I expect these government units, like Jane is saying, some of these government units to completely kick up production and rollout and whatnot. If some public schools are already doing it and they are not in the city, these are, Uku, you can tell already that there is stuff happening. But because we are not in the public sector, the majority of us, sorry to say, we imagine that things are not happening. There is stuff happening, and let's give credit where it is due.
Okay,
yeah,
I understand that.
And
completely.
Back to the question of who is teaching JSS, because now you've taken a simple mathematics and assumed that 17% is a very small number. 17% is a massive number, because secondary school teachers on the whole teach 2 or 3 subjects. So one teacher is already taking care of, imagine a class, a school has this many whatever. You're going to load shed all the other teaching, and other primary school teachers will plug in there because there are 6 years of primary. It's not 8. So the workload for primary school teachers has reduced. Yeah? And then you move these teachers up. It is not as difficult as perhaps the numbers look. When you calculate like that, it is possible for a school to have 5 teachers who have upgraded out of a staff of 45, and they can carry a load.
But though it's also possible that very many schools, hundreds of schools, do not have more than 2 teachers who qualify to teach JSS.
And this is where delocalization...
When you talk about this 17% is not equally distributed.
Correct. This is where
most
now
likely
those
to
issues...
be distributed more in the urban areas.
Correct.
In the rural schools,
Correct.
there'll be a school that has only one teacher, the head.
In fact, you will
could
find
teach
not even that. You will find schools that have one TSC teacher.
The rest
Let's call it out. Like we started that conversation there. There are schools that are in places that are difficult to staff. Like I said, we have
difficult to staff.
Difficult to
Nobody
staff.
wants to
Nobody
go.
wants to go there.
No, that's not entirely true.
It is.
I'll tell you why I'm saying it's not entirely true. It's how we phrase it. It's how we have decided to name it. But there are people who could go there. Why aren't these people going there? Or why don't we ensure that people who could go there actually go there?
It is
whether we like it or not, we do have, whether we accept it here on this studio, whether we accept it or not, there are hard to staff areas.
Yes,
Fact.
yes.
There's also a policy issue, and there I will concede completely. We have conflated qualification of a teacher and what can we call it, and what TSC wants as a teacher to teach in a public school. So we close out the profession to people who'd be willing to go there. Let me use what can I call it? Let me use Northeastern as An example. And it will not be tidy, but you will get where I'm going with this. In Northeast, there are professionals that live there, right? Many of them, particularly in the towns, so to speak.
And they don't all come from Northeastern.
No, they don't.
Yes.
There are very many of them who, there are quite a number, and I know this for a fact, who could teach, even did B.Ed.
Yeah.
But because of one rule or another that exists within our policy documents, maybe the two-subject rule or whatever, they are not regarded as a teacher who can teach in a public school. They will not be absorbed. They exist. They live there. They would like even to teach, but they can't even apply for that TSC job because they've been told they are not a teacher. Consider the cadres of professionals we have who would like to go back. In this country, I think it is easier to teach in university than it is to teach even at secondary school. So we have those endemic issues around. We need a very honest conversation around who do we call a teacher. If you're willing, we have an access issue, right? At the moment, if you're willing, and we can then find a way to bring you into this profession, whether we teach you pedagogy for a certain period, whether we absorb those ones that are already there, we could go there. Now, in terms of hard to staff areas, I want to agree with Mutheu. The truth of the matter is there are places where teachers will fight tooth and nail not to go. They will fight tooth and nail not to go, and it is just what it is. Yes.
Let me just go back to the earlier conversation and ask the question, this new system, what is it intended? What's its purpose? What is it supposed to achieve?
CBC?
Yes. I mean, it's new, it's everything. What is it supposed to achieve? Short, medium, long term. What is it for? What is it doing that the 844 system did not do?
Long-term Thailand.
No. Singapore. This is the views of Jane Mwangi. Long term, what it is.
Not Nduta.
Gosh, Jesus. That's the same person. Well, long term, it is long term. What CBC was aligning, on the face of it, really, aligning our education curriculum to our Constitution and Vision 2030. That is the definition on the books, right? And the reason that was necessary was because we mangled 844, what it was in 1985 versus what it was by 2005 were two different things entirely, and we mangled it so much that we could not go back. We took out everything. We took out tech, we took out music, we took out everything that gave it a soul. Let me use those words. So we mangled it, and CBC was an attempt. Actually, is
to what end?
To make sure that our children have what it needs to survive, to survive in their world now and in the future, and with flexibility. Because let me rephrase.
That goal will not be reached.
It will be reached.
It will not be reached.
It looks difficult now.
No, the
why do you say it won't be reached?
The goal isn't difficult. The goal isn't difficult. We are looking at the symptoms, we're looking at the causal effects of a situation and not addressing what is it that makes a child realize their potential. Is it the system or is it the teacher?
It is both. With the teacher, I think, in my opinion, being key, but it is both.
The teacher is key, in my opinion.
Yes.
Okay, now, if we do not fix this small matter of how it is we recruit our teachers, forget the training, recruit. Because there's this small matter again. These are all just small matters of really tiny little things of an attitude. The teaching profession isn't like any other profession. It's completely different.
In what way?
In this sense, there is no other profession that allows parents to give the authority of bringing up their children to a group of other people for the longest possible time. So when you have this situation where you have this duty, it's moral, it's everything that you could think of.
It's a vocation.
Yes. Should this person therefore not be among the people who is perhaps best trained and most willing to do this job? Because if you have this lofty goal and the person whom you've given the task of achieving it goes in half cocked, half baked, what do you think you are going to produce at the end of it?
I am so glad you're both teachers.
Good. Like for me, let me go to now my next pet project. One of the things that that has shifted the teacher of before and the teacher of now is what we call checking. Let me call it inspection and whatnot. Yeah? And this is where we've been hit hard as a profession by changing norms and things, and we didn't have our own stance to it. And the one stance that actually worked then was very hated by the profession itself. There is no profession that doesn't have a body that cross-checks quality.
Super intense.
Yeah? Yes. And that is what made teachers of long ago better than the teachers of now. Why? Because then if you are a bad teacher, the inspectors would hound you out of the profession. Yeah. Right now, it is a one profession where you read in the papers. Just check. Every 3 days, you'll find like a small column, teacher defiled student.
Well, you know, one who had children swimming
in the dust. Why would that? And we all laughed at that video. I hated it because if that was a private school, that teacher in the next instant would be home. But in the government, a teacher can do this on the soil. What happens if that child happens to go to Mombasa and fall and decides I was taught swimming and jumps into the ocean? Whose responsibility is it? You know, there is no checking. There is no robust checking. Yeah, we just come and say, you see, inspectors, we recommend you do this.
Can I ask a broader question?
Yeah. Here? So what is not checked doesn't get done.
I think it's in line with what you're saying here. Look at the national budget, and we had this conversation here. When we look at education as a whole, if it's possible to do that with some of these issues that we're discussing today, do you feel, as practitioners in education in the country, with what we are seeing, some of the things that we're highlighting today, with some of the issues, whether we want to admit it or not, that there are bumps right now as grade 7s go to school that should have been worked on. This document is a document. The actualization of the document is something totally different that, unfortunately, whether we want to admit it or not, has not been done, has not been actualized. Now, with the highest budget allocation in the country every budget year after something else, are we doing a service to children when it comes to education in this country, or a disservice?
Let me say this. We are not doing our children. It will be a yes and
it's
no.
It's okay, you can just say it.
Yes, I'm trying to find balance so that I speak the truth.
But
we are selling ourselves short. Now, in terms of, I think there is what we can do long term, short term and mid term. The short term is these guidelines, so to speak. We're in the Ubuntu season, share facilities, give of yourself. If you are a head teacher, do not wait to be told. And do not wait to be told what to do. Pick up these things, walk to your colleague, head teacher over at, at the secondary school. Actually take this up as a vocation. That is very many lessons. Yes, that is very very basic. 2 weeks or something. That is very basic. That is these guidelines. Will it sort out the problem? No, it is a band-aid, so to speak, as we look at other things. Mid-term, and this is where I hope I'm really looking forward to read the report from the Presidential Working Party. We have to discuss education financing, and at long last in this country, we have to tell ourselves the truth. When we say free primary education, when was it ever free? Even in 2003, when it was introduced. Let us speak very frankly. When was it ever free? And yet, it is our biggest budget line item, isn't it? So we have an issue of wastage or an issue of reallocation. We need to discuss how we fund education and what we fund. We are a young country. We will not be like the UKs or the USs. That time is past. We have to discuss. I mean, I like finally to hear this. I like that I can hear this government talking about if I pay school fees in school, if I pay school fees in a private school, how is it possible that I suddenly can't pay a fraction of those fees in high school, and therefore I'm competing with a needy child for the same resources? It is a discussion, and yes, basic education is a right. Free basic education is a right. But we have to call ourselves as Kenyans to a meeting and actually discuss, when was this education ever free? What does it mean? What does it cost to educate a child? And then allocate resources appropriately. Also, something else we can do short term that will have very long term effects is actually discuss the endemic issues in education. Curriculum is deployed or it is enforced by people. If we do not deal with the question of who deals with that, who delivers this curriculum, we will have failed. Yeah. So let us unpack the teaching profession and say, as a country, is it time we actually had the discussion around what to do with a constitutional commission that is answerable only to itself, therefore cannot be directed by anybody else. Yet it is the home it is the home of our future, so to speak. Isn't it time we actually had that discussion? Isn't it time we talked about how it is possible for that commission to be a regulator and an employer and the home of standards? How can it check itself? Isn't it time we actually talked as a country around standards? Quality assurance. Let us discuss how it is possible that quality assurance exists for private schools only. Like I can say that because it is the truth. Nobody will walk up to a public school that has no toilets and say, shut this down. It is not right that students should come here. I promise you the day that happens, they will improve. Because whether it is a community that rises up or government that rises up, then there'll be an improvement. But it is time we had an honest conversation around
about everything else,
about quality assurance, because you can't fix a system with a curriculum.
How do you get quality if the people who are supposed to move that sector are not the best quality that you have?
To be honest, and I'll answer that.
You know, I'm a dog with a bone in this one here.
Yes, no, and I will say this. The Ministry of Education has some of the best, most qualified, astute professionals I have met.
Are they the most committed?
Are they committed? Yes, I will say this. Because they are working with...
How committed are they really?
They are very...
If they are committed, we should not be having this conversation.
No, we will.
Let's
No. And I will say, there's a reason I'm saying
we
that,
can't be saying, oh, let's appreciate the good things.
You have asked
but also we should in the future be asking ourselves,
because you're assuming...
If those people are committed, we will not be asking
you are assuming education works in a vacuum. We are in a society.
Okay.
Yes.
Are those in the education sector raising the right questions to the other parts of
severally? And this is why I can say it. I don't even work for them.
Those in the education sector have had 7 years. 7 years rolling out CBC. They are as confused today as they were last year.
No.
On what happens to our grade 7s.
Who is confused?
They are those in the education sector. Look at what they're saying. Children in some densely populated areas should go to this other school and find out how they can go to those schools.
In a 2-kilometer
radius. A completely inequitable system of education in this country. Duta. Listen, hold on. Duta. How many schools, how many secondary schools have adequate labs today?
What does that mean?
What does adequate?
That mean? Sorry, I'm sorry. I am that person.
How many are the labs fit for purpose?
Well, the labs have been existing and kids have been sitting from 4 using those labs. What do you mean?
How many secondary schools actually have a lab for chemistry, for physics, for biology?
Yes, that's not the standard.
Hold on.
The standard is biochem. In fact, you can have one lab for all three. That is the standard. It is based on population of schools.
A majority of the population.
That standard is not faulty. It is based on the curriculum.
Majority reports have shown a majority of the secondary schools in Kenya, those day sub-county schools, have one lab.
Yes.
Okay, for a population of about over 1,000.
Yes.
Is that adequate?
And I was coming to that.
Surely.
Hold on. Let me.
And now you're adding grade 7s to come and use the same facility.
Hold on. You assume, Eric. Hold on. You assume, Eric. You assume, whether or not they were joining at grade 7 or at Form 1, they would have faced the same conditions.
And
that is what
issue.
Exactly. And I'm coming.
That is the issue.
Yes, and that is what I'm saying.
We have. And those in charge are very qualified.
And committed.
That is what I'm.
Now hold on. Let me finish my point.
Yes.
Education does not exist within a vacuum. So in this country, our infrastructure, the way we do school infrastructure, is thoroughly fragmented. Now, 27% funding education barely hits the mark, like I said. We're already 13 million. At the beginning of January this year, another million will get dumped in, and so on and so forth. And it will keep happening. That 27%, it is not enough.
Okay.
What we need, hold on.
Yes.
We need a plan.
Imagine the hour is over.
Hold on, I have to finish my point.
Can you imagine?
But we have to, it is a whole of society problem.
That's true.
Yes,
I
we have
agree.
to deal.
Whole of society problem. The leaders are those in charge, the Ministry of Education, and Kina Mudheo, who've been advising them.
Well then. All of a promotion I've got here.
You bus under the bus. Thank you for joining us, ladies. Mudheo Kasanga is an education expert. She is on the board of KEPSA Education Board, and Nduta Kangede is the head of secretariat at the Kenya Association of International Schools, both very passionate about the education sector. Thank you for tuning in. Keep it here for more. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Former IEBC chairman Wafula Chebukati has dismissed allegations by Azimio leader Raila Odinga that he, together with commissioners Abdi Gali and Boya Mulu, visited his home during the August 9th general elections. In a statement, Chebukati described the allegations as gossip aimed at degrading him. Chebukati has given the Azimio leader 7 days to submit evidence of video and photos, failure to which he'll sue him. And the main suspect in the murder of LGBTQ activist Edwin Chiloba is set to undergo a mental assessment test ahead of his trial. The Eldoret High Court ruled that Jackton Odhiambo will face murder charges. The court, however, freed 4 suspects linked to Chiloba's murder due to lack of evidence. The 3 who were minors have been ordered to report to the DCI offices in Eldoret South once a month for 3 months. Chiloba's body was discovered on 3rd of January, wrapped in a metallic box and dumped by the roadside in Kipkaren area. Now, doctors have issued a fresh 30-day strike to the government over a shortage of doctors, even after one of their own died by suicide. Fred Mwoki took his life over what he alleged to be frustrations of unemployment. KMPDU Secretary General Davjia Teller has called on the government to take action on the rise of unemployment among doctors, failure to which they'll proceed with a strike.
In a suicide note, he wrote to the sister. Dr. Mugi described his desperations not being able to find employment and the sorrows of watching his family struggle months after completing his internship. Daktari represents the hundreds of our bright brothers and sisters who, after toiling for years training to be medics, have found themselves either unemployed or underemployed or working under precarious contracts that don't offer them any protection. Employ doctors, give doctors space to have discussions, remunerate doctors on time, promote doctors where they need to be promoted, just like all workers.
Some of the issues we're not raising here will not be implemented. We'd rather stay home with our colleagues than pretend that we're working and we're just watching patients die.
To the corridors of justice, and Korogosho MCA Absalom Odhiambo will know his fate today. The MCA, who was arrested for alleged incitement remarks, is said to have uttered words that are likely to cause violence. Police are seeking to detain him for 7 days to complete investigations on the allegations. His lawyers, led by Dunstan Omari among others, however, opposed the move, urging the court not to be used politically.
I'll contextualize this matter in the sense that this is politics that is being brought to the judiciary, and the trend of politics that before this court, before Your Honor, you sat here, I happened to defend 5 cabinet ministers right now who are charged of similar offenses.
Your Honor, this is the law. There is a respondent who has been brought before this court. He cannot just walk away because he's in custody. Kindly accord him bond of his own cognizance, that is free bond, because he's an honorable member of County Assembly, so that whatever issues that the police or the investigators have against him can be channeled while he is out on bond.
Now, the government has announced that it will start issuing digital death and birth certificate from March 1st. Immigration PS Julius Bitok says the launch coincides with the introduction of the Unique Personal Identifiers UPI, which will act as a lifetime ID for newborns. The identifier will be used across the country to children who are Kenyan citizens. Now, meanwhile, for the first time ever, the widow of George Magoha, Barbara Odudu Magoha, said Magoha was a no-nonsense individual. She says that despite his demeanor, Barbara says Magoha was a happy person who loved his family more and made it a priority at all time. She painted a picture of a man who, despite not being Nigerian, was courageous enough to ask her out back in medical school in Nigeria.
I want to remove that serious face of Magoha so that you know the other side of Magoha. Exactly 1 month after we met, he started telling people we are going to get married. And that was the first time we had a quarrel. I said, how can you do that? He said, no, I know you will not accept because I'm not a Nigerian. So you go and tell them why you can't marry me.
Barbara says that Nigerian men did not let her rest easy for dating and marrying a Kenyan man.
We Nigerians, marrying from the same village was the norm because somehow we were never related. So to hear that I left the village, left the town, left the county, we still call them states, we call them states, left the other states, left the whole of Nigeria. It was like, you're crazy. Everybody said, you are crazy. What's wrong with you? In fact, there was this slang that what is there in Sokoto is there in Shokoto. Sokoto is the farthest point northwest of Nigeria. Shokoto. Written the same way, but pronounced S-O-K-O-T-O. Shokoto means trouser in Yoruba language. So they say, what you are looking for so far away is here. Where are you?
At one point, Magoha said of how he loved playing his biggest guitar and even got him into trouble back at Storia Boys High School. May you rest in peace, sir. I'm Dennis.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, a few minutes after 8 o'clock, and we're looking at traffic is heavy in most parts of the city this morning. On the Thika Superhighway, heavy into the CBD, and we're looking at way past that outer ring junction. It's heavy coming off of Limuru Road as well. As you get through, all of this onto Wangari Maathai Way, it's going to connect with what's coming out of Westlands. It's heavy on Ring Road Westlands, Wayaki Way, James Gishuru, in from Gong Road. So this whole network of traffic is happening well into the city this morning. I know it's looking really crazy on Outer Ring. We're also looking at it heavy then coming into the CBD, but as well as parts of Mombasa Road. We'll keep an eye on things and see what happens in about half hour. Let's do it. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 7 minutes after 8. Welcome to the third hour of The Situation Room. On this first day of February 2023, many comments from the previous conversation focusing exams on aspects that were neglected, for example, PE, science, practicals, life skills, talent search, etc., would push the teachers to teach them. Remember, we have all these 844s and nothing new in the CBC if we can't do something about the national examination system. One of the many comments on that. So anyway, as the CBC rollout continues on to grade 7, we will continue having these discussions. Now, we want to talk about the position of women in law, in various leadership positions in law. Whether it's the bench, the bar, academia, how are they doing? Have we seen an improvement in this? There's a new report that was released recently. Actually, I think it was launched yesterday. And the founder and executive director of the Institute for African Women in Law, Professor Japa Dawuni, is with us in the studio. We welcome her the way we welcome our guests. She gets to hear the day's proverb first.
Yes, our proverbs for the whole of this week are from a country of Namibia, whose Capital is?
That one.
That one. Okay. Written Windhoek, but pronounced?
Windhoek.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Right. An old monkey never forgets to climb trees.
An old monkey never forgets to climb trees.
Yes. The moment the word forget is instilled in that proverb, then it means it's something that the monkey had done. So we are referring to the likelihood of the monkey forgetting certain routines that it was accustomed to, perhaps in a younger age. Yes.
And we say that is impossible.
That really is not within the realms of impossibility. Not really. No.
Forget everything else, but
climbing trees, no.
You won't forget that. You won't forget that. Professor Dawuni, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's Biggest Conversation.
Thank you.
Good
Glad
to have
be
you
here.
on the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Let's start with that proverb. An old monkey never forgets to climb trees. What's your interpretation of it?
I think it quite maybe similar to the one we've heard. Once you learn how to ride a bicycle, you never forget. But I don't know in this case if there's some level of biological determinism that it's just part of the monkey's biological makeup to climb trees. And if we were to extrapolate that onto human existence, I think it's just like you said, some of the routines, the things we do, the things we are brought up. We could also go into the socialization we receive as children. And then as a feminist, womanist, I would say that it can also go into the gendered roles that we are brought up with. So once we learn those things, we don't forget. But I think in this case, when it comes to gender constructs, we can unlearn and hopefully forget.
Okay.
The bad ones.
The bad ones.
Yeah.
You call yourself a feminist womanist. Is there a distinction between the two?
There is some level of epistemological distinction, and I'll try and I'll try not to use and I'll try not to throw too many of those words here. And that for some people, the feminist movement, it's really at the core about women's equality and equality in society. But if you look at it, it's gone through different waves. So, for example, most feminists in the United States, where I teach and live, we have the distinction between white feminists, black feminists, African American feminists, and then of course we have African feminists, Asian feminists. You go, it's really kind of morphed into different. And there's been some distinctions and tensions where some people feel that feminism has been taken over by white feminists. So the word feminist denotes white feminism. And others who are black or brown, but they say, where are we featuring in this discourse? So within the African American context, they developed the idea of womanism to bring it closer home to the African roots of what it means to be a woman. So Alice Walker, for example, has been credited highly with this idea of womanism, which looks more from the communal perspective, not the individual perspective. So that's where those distinctions come. And I think I straddle both.
Okay. All right. You founded the Institute for African Women in Law. What's it about?
Yeah, so that was founded in 2015, and I would say it was born out of my frustration as a scholar. Because I qualified as a lawyer in Ghana. I did my PhD in political science at Georgia State in Atlanta, Georgia. So once you finish your PhD, you're thinking, what's going to be my research focus? I could do something in law, I could do something in international development, which was my master's, and I could also do something in politics. And I decided after 5 years of law school, I wasn't going to throw that away. So I wanted to bridge the gap between politics and law, and most importantly, my interest in women and gender issues. And I decided to start researching on women in law. I noted that as I did more research, I couldn't find a lot that had been written. So I said to myself, if nobody's writing it, or nobody's writing it consistently, then that means there's a problem, there's a gap. I'm a problem solver. So I decided to solve that problem. So 2016, I edited my first book on women in gender and the judiciary in Africa. And I'll say it's the first ever book to be written on women judges in Africa. So that was 2016, and I followed up soon after that with a second book, a third and a fourth book. So that passion for research led me to create an organization that would conduct research on women in law, but also importantly, look at the gaps that we are finding in the research and provide training and other capacity enhancement. So that's how the Institute was formed And that's where we are today.
I mean, by the time somebody's going into research, there's a problem, isn't it? That's something you want to find out about, or something that you want to then be able to fix as a result of that research. So you talk about gaps. What are these problems, or what are these gaps then that would lead to research on women in leadership, or women in law, women on the bench in Africa?
Yeah, good point. So, there's always that issue that there's a problem to be fixed, or there's a question to be answered. The good thing is that sometimes it's not a problem. It's just a matter of really understanding deeper and maybe finding alternatives or finding solutions. So for me, the problem in this case, and looking at it from a research perspective, the problem statement was, for me, where are the African women in law? I knew I was one of them. I knew there were many women across Ghana, across the continent, but we couldn't find that. So my first book, if you look at it, Gender in the Judiciary, was what I call painting the landscape, or trying to understand the landscape of, okay, who is a judge? How do they become a judge? What do they do when they get into the judiciary? What are the problems they face? What are the contributions they are making? So even though it was more of a problem with the lack of knowledge, it wasn't a problem with the fact that women were necessarily having too many problems. Given, and this is something we'll talk about maybe in a few more minutes, is that we see that across the continent of Africa, women have entered the legal professions broadly, at the judiciary, the bench, and the bar, but they still have challenges they face. And these are the challenges that need to be highlighted, but most importantly, I'm all about celebration. Because growing up, like, if I can segue very quickly, I never law wasn't something I wanted to do. I wanted to be an architect, but I couldn't draw a straight line. People looked at me and thought, you should be a teacher. You're gentle, you're kind. People thought you should be a nurse because you're just nice. People will get well when they see. I'm like, okay. But I always say that this is where it gets gendered, because nobody ever told me be a doctor. It was a nurse. And we heard this a lot yesterday during the launch, where the pioneer women judges who were in the room, Justice Effie, Justice Aloch, and even CJ herself and Chief Justice Kome, talked about how they were told to be a nurse or a teacher or something else. So why wasn't I told to be a doctor? Anyway, I don't like blood, I don't like chemistry and physics, so I could never have been a doctor. But I walked into a salon in Ghana one time. I saw a magazine that was just lying there, and I was really young, 18. And I looked in there and I saw a young woman from the United States who was at that time 19 years old. She had a PhD, she had a law degree, and I said, I want to be like her. I cut out the picture out of the magazine, and to date I have it. Over 30 years, I still have that picture, and that inspired me. So for me, being a lawyer was the first step to figuring out how can we solve problems. And if I wasn't going to go to the courtroom to solve the problems that my cases were going to be about, then I wanted to be in the classroom, furthering the knowledge, and most importantly, also advancing knowledge. And that's where I got into the field.
What would you say? Okay, so in terms of representation, in terms of women then being in these fields where, this particular field, we know that they're there. Would you say that today, on the continent, even as you sat amongst these powerful women in that launch yesterday, would you say that the representation or the entrenchment to guarantee that women are in these positions has improved over time? 30 years ago, when you saw that, and then practicing over time, and then coming in today, would you say that it has improved? Is there now an embracing of a culture then that admits women into these circles?
Absolutely. And I'll give Kenya as an example. So one thing I always like to say when I'm doing my research, my speaking engagement, is that Africa is a continent. It is not a country. Don't expect me to come here and tell you Africa. So I have developed the habit of saying across Africa. I like to write and say across Africa to show the expanse of this huge heterogeneous continent. And so for that reason, I tell people it's over 1 billion people and counting, thousands of cultures, thousands of languages, if not in the millions. So I always like to nuance my explanations and examples. So back to your question, across the continent. And I tell people, I'm not going to come and tell you I'm an expert on Africa. If anybody tells you they are, tell them they're a liar, because you're talking about 54 nation states. They cannot possibly know everything. So I'm very proud to say that and shy away from saying I'm an expert on Africa. However, given the work I have done across different countries, and I'm a comparativist, I go to the field, I do research, so I'm on the ground and learning. And given what I've been also studied from other places I'm yet to visit, there has been progress in many places across the continent. You find out that, yes, 30 years ago compared to now, there's been a lot of shifts. And so we're getting more women getting into law school, getting into the different branches of the profession. The numbers are increasing in some countries and not in others. In one country, you might find out the numbers may be increasing in the number of women in the judiciary, but not so much in the number of women in the academy. Another thing is the distinction between the representation in numbers versus the representation in leadership. So let me take Kenya as an example. The research we have done shows that, of course, the judiciary of Kenya has about 50% women judges generally. What distinguishes Kenya from other places is that Kenya also has almost 50 or more % of women in leadership. So the representation, what we call the symbolic representation, is kind of equal to the leadership representation. But that is not the case in other countries.
Something I'd like to ask. You alluded to a distinction in feminism based on the geographical area that one comes from. So let me ask the question. Asia, the Western world, Africa, when you look at this definition of feminism, where do they converge? Where do they differ?
Yeah, that's a deep question. So I think the convergence would be maybe to a large extent that we all are focused on the equality of women. So at the basic level is the idea of fighting for and advancing women's equality across board. But it's also different because feminism is based on lived experiences. And one of the things you find with knowledge production, like it or not, the knowledge production is highly regulated by power. So what we know as knowledge systems, and you may have heard about this within the context of the African knowledge systems, is what we have this movement of decolonizing knowledge. We've been made for many years to believe that who we are, what our systems are, how we operate, is objective, it's based on research. But we are now deconstructing to realize that those who created those knowledge systems had power. They created these systems that we use to describe ourselves. And so we have to deconstruct that knowledge. So even that with feminism, in as much as we're advocating for equality, you also find that it's based on power structures. And that is where women from the continent of Africa, women from Latin America or Asia, stepping back and looking at this thing we've painted called feminism and asking, it doesn't really look like me. That is not my lived experience. Why should I be told that I should be a certain way of being in order to be considered a woman, to be considered a feminist? So it's really constant shifts, and that has taken place even at the global level. If you're looking at the women meetings convened by the UN, which one of them was held in Nairobi, I think in 1975 or 85. I always forget the year. I think the Nairobi conference was 85. It started off in Mexico, Nairobi, Copenhagen, ended up in Beijing. There were many tensions with the women when they met because some groups of women wanted to take over the agenda.
Some groups of women?
Yes, some groups of women, and I think you want me to go deeper into that.
That's why there was silence.
So, yes.
Pause, take a deep breath, and then continue. Yes.
So some groups of women, and I'll be very open about this, is that it was what we classify, I think back to your question about geography, is that Western feminists took over the agenda, and you will talk to people who have been to these meetings, and it was really a silencing and erasure of the other women. So quote unquote other is another word we use in the decolonized knowledge systems, feminist systems. Who is the other? And there's a very powerful article that was written by an Indian feminist scholar, Mohanty Chandra Talpade, who talks about under Western eyes, and how Western knowledge systems and knowledge ways of being have looked at non-Western women through the lens of the Western woman. And so we need to constantly question and push back those knowledge systems that authorize non-white women.
So does that mean then, even as we look, so the demands that are made of feminism then would be split depending on where you come from or where you are culturally domiciled? Because we're saying what the demands of feminism would be from the Western world. Now, very practically at what you've talked about here, the representation of women in government, the representation of women in leadership, that perhaps the demands of Western women in the same feminism would be different from the demands of women in Africa when it comes to leadership, when it comes to representation, when it comes to government. They would be different based on what you're saying if we're looked at in a different lens. That, and if I'm putting words in your mouth, please stop me. But then are you also saying then that if we looked at it as one umbrella, then it is impossible to say that everybody can operate under the same umbrella of feminism based on the fact that culturally women are different from a global point of view?
Yeah. No, you're right. I think the simple answer is yes, you're right. The idea, the reason for the pushback is because we, for many years, have been told to operate at a certain globalized norm, globalized level. Then you sit back and you ask yourself, one, who created this global system? Who fits into this global system? Who has a voice at this global table? And that is when you begin to see that the voices of the women from places outside of the Western systems were not part of the process of creating this global standards, global norms. So within the feminist movement, there was this idea of sisterhood is global, which is great. Yeah, we're all women, we're all struggling to a large extent, the same struggle. So it's a global movement. But then you dig deeper and you realize that, okay, if you look at the layers of oppression, the layers of power hierarchies, we all may be women facing different things. But for example, the woman in any country across Africa is not just dealing with their domestic patriarchy, they are dealing with what we also call global patriarchy, global capitalist patriarchy, global imperialism. So you find that there are layers upon which the woman in the non-Western system would be facing that they in the Western systems may not. That is not to say they don't have problems. They do have their specific problems. But we cannot use one cap to fit all. So coming back to my research, I propounded a theory, I'm still theorizing, in an article, I think, in a book chapter in 2019, which I called matrilegal feminism, right? So this is an issue with that feminism keeps popping up in different ways. We have postmodern feminists, dominance feminists, Western feminists, all those. But it's important to keep pushing back at knowledge systems. So I propounded this idea of matrilegal feminism. And for me, it's because, once again, I am having to do research. I am having to apply the theoretical lens that I see as not fitting the explanation of the lived experiences of the African woman in law. I could apply any other theory to it. Yes, it may explain it to some extent, but the idea of knowledge production is to build up, to deconstruct, to reconstruct, and then to make things better. So I looked at this idea of African systems where we have matriarchy, which is not something that most Western feminists or societies know about. We know patriarchy, right, the man in control. But within Africa, we have pockets of different cultures that practice patriarchy. And so if you go back into our historical past, there's a lot been written about pre-colonial African system, the colonial period, and the post-colonial, and whichever phase we are in today. I think that the idea of matriarchy, even if it is not dominant in all societies across Africa, still has a value to play in how we recognize women, how we recognize women's leadership. Now, very quickly, within African systems, we know communities that have women as chiefs. We know communities that have women as queens. They are decision makers. We know African systems that have had women as leaders of armies fighting in war. We know African systems that had and still have women as religious leaders. Now, if you look at religious leadership, the highest, what is called the priestess or other role, you don't see that in, let's say, Catholicism, where the Pope and the top people are men. So what is it about African systems that have been erased that were reconstructed by Western systems that tell us that the only way you can be your being is to be like the Western systems. And that is where we need to deconstruct and reconstruct. And that is where I came up with this idea of matrilegal feminism, putting together matriarchy, legal, and feminism to explain, once again, to your question, why is it that across the continent of Africa, despite the fact that most African countries gained independence in the late 50s, starting in Ghana and then up onto the 60s. But we have done much better in getting women into leadership in judicial positions. Take, for example, quickly, Great Britain colonized Kenya. Well, call it settler colony if you want. It colonized Ghana, it colonized Nigeria. But these countries have put women as Supreme Court presidents of the Supreme Court or Chief Justices before the UK. UK is yet to do that.
Yeah.
Ghana has had 2 women Chief Justices. Nigeria has had 1. Kenya has your first one. And of course, before the first one, you had 2 women Deputy Chief Justices. So what is it about African systems that despite the fact that we entered the game late, we've been able to promote and push women into leadership? And that's something that we need to explore.
Actually, they're just asking, then did we enter the game late? Or were we there from the very beginning? We just are retracing our own roots.
Well, we are very fast learners. What we've done is we've understood where these fellows purpose to go, and we've overtaken them. We realize these fellows aren't going at the pace we'd like to. So
let's jump there faster.
We've hastened the whole process.
Time for that break. It's 8:30. Time for a Minute Maid break. Tell her about the Minute Maid break.
People drink tea. People drink water. People drink coffee. Like the country you mentioned that you come from, Danuki is one big country. They also have fruit juices. Now here, there is a refreshing drink that is referred to as Minute Maid, and for a good reason. The minute you have this feeling that you're fatigued and you're tired and you're wondering what on earth the day holds for you, you take a sip of one of those drinks, and there's a variety. There's pulpy orange, there's nectar mango, there's tropical, there's apple. One thing that will happen to you, that will fascinate you, is you'll have this moment that can best be described as
that's it. And that's just juice. 8:30. Professor Japa Dawuni is the founder and executive director of the Institute for African Women in Law. They have just released a new report called Women in Law and Leadership, and that's what we're discussing today. How are we doing in Africa in terms of women in law and leadership? And we're talking about various cadres. We're talking about the bench, the bar, academia. How are we doing in terms of that? Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly. First, the weather and the traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanya.
Amen. Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It gets over
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes.
what the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself.
When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom?
I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, because
major. Looking at sunny conditions in Nairobi at 18, highs of 30 and lows of 15 today. Sunny at 15 in Nakuru, highs of 30 and lows of 14. We'll see lows of 11 in Nyeri, where it's sunny at 16, and the sun is up in Eldoret as well, going to highs of 28. We'll see highs of 32 in Mombasa, where it's sunny at 27. It's also 27 and sunny in Malindi, going to highs of 31. 30 will be the high in a sunny Kisumu at 22, and it's 22 and sunny in Kakamega, highs of 31. Cloudy conditions in Kampala, highs of 28, and highs of 32 in Dar es Salaam. It's 17 and cloudy in Johannesburg, highs of 23, and Lagos is mostly clear at 25, going to highs of 34. And Kinshasa will see highs of 32 today. It's currently sunny at 23.
London Mulwa DJ Absolute. When the gang is together,
Got the sugar, got the spice.
Yorada.
Yes.
I have missed you like hot hamburgers. Eh?
Like hot hamburgers.
You know, bad boys give more money than you can count.
Hey, bad boys get more money than you can count. If it's fun, it's funky, it's fresh, you're definitely going to catch it here. I don't know what you do every day from 11 a.m. to 3 o'clock, but if I were you, I'd tune in to
Sugar and Spice only on 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So if you say it's on, then it's on.
Super highway this morning coming into the city. The question is, what's going on? And where is the super in the super highway when traffic starts right outside Quiver? And if you know where Quiver is on the Thika super highway, then you know things are quite crazy this morning. Well past TRM. It's coming in from Kiambu County, well in from Githurai. And so traffic comes all the way into the CBD from there. All right, look at these, the triple roads of Whispers, then Rosslyn, and then Limuru Road coming in through to Muthaiga. Very heavy traffic there. And your escape route on the Red Hill Link Road coming in from Westlands is not helping you much today because it's packed with traffic. We're looking at Juja Road, very heavy traffic this morning as well, inbound, as well as coming off of Manyanja Road, as well as Kangunda Road. That eastern bypass issue continues to be an issue. Guys, we have to expect that for the rest of today because 6 p.m. is when Kura says they'll be off-site. So watch out for that. All right, Langata Road is also pretty busy and they're going to come all the way from that junction of Rongai into that junction at the Wilson Airport. So we are still in traffic hour. It's going to continue for a while. Let's know what's happening where you are. SpiceFM, KE on Twitter.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Who's a founder and executive director of the Institute for African Women in Law. Tell us about this research that you conducted, the Women in Law and Leadership.
Yeah, this is a 4-nation research that we've been conducting for the past year and more. And it's on Nigeria, South Africa, Senegal, and Kenya. The broad idea was to paint a landscape of where women are in law and in leadership. So as I said, there hasn't been consistent research done in this area. And this is comprehensive because it goes deeper. We're not just looking at women's representation in numbers. Numbers matter, but then we don't want to just count the numbers and think, oh, we've arrived. We have 50 women or 40 women, so we are doing good. We want to dig deeper to find out what are the real lived experiences of these women in law. How do we get more women into leadership? And the ultimate question is, why do we need more women in leadership? And I think that the simple answer is because they have a right to be in leadership. If the world is made up of more than 50%, if African economies are made up of more than 50% of women, isn't it fair and justified that they should be equally represented in leadership? And I would like to preface that when we're looking at women in leadership or equal and equitable representation of women in leadership, it's not about... Some people look at it and think, well, it means that women are taking over. Now, I can respond quickly and say, if women are taking over, then what's wrong with that? If men have been on the ground. But for me, I always build on the system, once again, of rooting my knowledge production in African systems and realize that our communities are based on consensus. To a large extent, it's based on complementarity. And so if women are in leadership, we bring to the table what women bring. We also bring to the table new ways of thinking, diverse ways of thinking, which traditionally we may not have had because those positions were occupied by men. So if we are all together in the boat and bringing the different perspectives, I think it strengthens decision-making processes, it strengthens the policies we bring together, and it strengthens the society for the better. So that's the reason, the ultimate reason why we should have women in leadership, and the also simple reason they have a right to be there. Now, we find out that within the 4 countries we've studied, we looked at women as lawyers, women as judges, and women as professors or academics. The findings are very diverse. In some countries, we've seen progress. For example, in Kenya, we have a very diverse judiciary in terms of women's representation, over 50% inching up in the number of women represented, and of course in leadership. And in the bar in Kenya, which is the lawyers, we also have about 42 to 45% of women as lawyers, but the leadership doesn't represent. So, for example, in the history of Kenya, you've had only one woman who was ever the chairperson of the Law Society of Kenya, Ambassador Rachel Omamo. And currently, based on our research counts, you've had 3 women who have been vice chairs. Now, that is not a good representation of the 40 to 45% of women represented at the bar or the Law Society. So more work needs to be done. We also looked in this research at the women's representation at the Office of the Attorney General and the Office of the Public Prosecutor. No woman has ever been Attorney General in Kenya. And so if you look at the academy, we also realize that in as much as more women are getting into the academy as law professors or lecturers, the numbers of women who have risen up to the level of being deans is very low. Based on the research we did, and we looked at just about 4 universities of the public and private, it's only 18% that have been deans. So you find that, yeah, the judiciary progress has been made, but then the bar and the academy, still more work needs to be done.
Do we see a situation where, in your research, you determined whether it is that women present themselves to be considered for these leadership positions, or is it that they shy away from presenting themselves? And if so, if you're talking about equitability based on capability, is it then now a discussion that perhaps goes to, should we say, the Western concept of the role of women? I say this because you brought in the issue of women taking over. The position of women in leadership in a traditional African context was always there. It was never seen as though they were taking over. Not really.
You're right. So I think this is where the deconstruction of our mindsets needs to take place. Because in as much as most of us think we are still kind of living within the African concepts and ways of being, it's not. We were very much, imagine the amount of years, over 100 years for countries that were colonized, but we are still in a colonized state in our ways, mindset and other. Some will call it neo-colonialism, as was propounded by Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, or other forms of colonization that we're still going through. So some people still operate under this notion of bureaucratic systems. The legal education system was imported into Kenya and other African countries. That is not to say before the colonized systems came, we didn't have ways of adjudication.
We did.
Right. So we have inherited systems of education that were based on the models that were brought in from whether Britain for most countries or France or other places. And we still operate under those norms that believe that leadership is something reserved for men. So we have to constantly deconstruct this notion of what leadership means and if it's always masculine. So it's something that we need to do constantly. So the question about whether women shy away from or if they are capable, once again, because of the traditional notions that, and we can't always say that they were always inherited. In as much as most of these patriarchal norms were inherited from wherever they came from, whether Great Britain or France or the US, it's also that we do also have patriarchy within African systems. So a combination of both means that, once again, the woman in African systems or any other former colonized systems, whether in Latin America or Asia, have a double bind to deal with. You're dealing with your local patriarchal systems, you're dealing with your imported patriarchal systems. So that is where it's a matter of looking into these systems of deconstruction and realizing that women do have the capabilities. Like I mentioned earlier, African countries across the country have led wars, have been leaders in economic production. Women are CEOs.
Yep.
Even if it's a market stall, she is the CEO of her market stall. They are producing and contributing to national economy development, but we don't often count their contributions. So we need to look at what is it that one has in some ways prevented or slowed down women's progression into leadership positions. And it's a combination of factors. You're right that there's some level in the book and the report we mentioned the idea of personal agency. Are you going to push forward? But I would also say within the report we identify 3 levels of explanation: the individual level, the institutional level, and the structural level. Because of this, we use this theory called intersectionality, which looks at the ways in which women, and this theory was propounded by an African-American, but broadly most African-American women scholars, but was really put into knowledge by an African-American social-legal scholar, Kimberly Crenshaw, who has been credited really with the idea of intersectionality, which is to say that within the African-American context in the U.S., the experiences of the black woman, and she used it based on a particular case that went to court, are not just because she's black, it's also because she's a woman. So the idea of gender and her race intersecting means that she has more barriers to deal with. This concept has been expanded and also looking at issues of, well, it could mean that your race intersects with your gender, which may intersect with your marital status, which may intersect with your age, which may intersect with your religion, which may intersect. It goes on. Yeah. So within the African context, once again, if you're looking at this factor of how intersectionality affects just in this case the woman in law, it means that you're a lawyer, you've just been called to the bar. That means one, you're young. You are dealing with the age, a factor. You are probably unmarried. You are dealing with that marital or unmarital status. And then your gender. Now, within most African systems, with maybe exceptions like South Africa or a few other places, race may not be a factor, but ethnicity could be a factor, even though I haven't found it to be a strong determinant. So these factors combine at the institutional level, the structural level, and do play a role in impeding the opportunities that are available for women to rise into leadership.
You know, the understanding of what it is that is meant by this simple term leadership and how it plays on to whether it's the political arena or whether it is in civil service or, like in your case, the practice of law, there is a historical bias. No, there is a historical thought bias with regards to what women can and cannot do and what men can and cannot do. Now, these processes that you speak of and which you've researched on demystify these things. I have to ask the question, since it's feminism, what's the role of men in all this and where do they fit in?
Excellent question. So men have a role to play. I have a quote I created that said that if, just to paraphrase, if we are fighting for gender equality without including men, for me, it looks like riding a car on 2 wheels. You can only go so far. You will get there, but it's going to be a painful process. It's going to be slow. Your wheels are going to be screeching, and by the time you get there, your 2 tires would be bent over, bent out. So that means that we cannot exist without complementarity. And I also have another quote that says that if men, and I'm being careful with not generalizing here because it's not all men, it's not all women, so essentialism must be at play here. If we take the assumption that men created problems for women, men created gender inequality, then shouldn't they be part of the solution? Because if they are not, then you are once again burdening women to deconstruct what they did not construct in the first place. So with that thinking in mind, men have a role to play in making sure that they also deconstruct, some men deconstruct what they understand as women's position in society, women's roles in society. I'm also happy to mention that I have met many men who understand, who have deconstructed their minds, who really never had that problem from get-go, whether it's because of their socialization or experiences. And so I always highlight those ones. And so at the Institute, we actually have a program we call the Male Allies. And the male is actually an acronym. I made it an acronym which means Men Advocates in Law for Equality. So you're a man, you're an advocate in law, whichever position, and you are for equality. How can you as a man use your position of authority, your position of power, which is a privilege that you have traditionally had from the day you were born, to a large extent. How can you use that power? How can you use that position of privilege to change systems within the legal profession and broadly in society in order to make it equitable and promote equality for women? And so men do have a role to play, and we invite all men to be part of it.
There is a small nuance here, and it has to do let's, for lack of a better word, let's call it an ecosystem within which we human beings exist or coexist. And then there's this little aspect of coexistence called childbearing and then rearing. And then now, the biopsychological relationships between men, boys, and their mothers, and how they are brought up. Again, the role, because what we're discussing here is an eventuality, something that we have to deal with on a daily basis. But I'm going to the genesis. The country that you work and live in, there are many articles, there are many publications that have been written about a particular segment of that population, the African American, and the absentee fathers, and the effect of this absenteeism, as they call it. But if I push the absenteeism aside, would you say that there's a global notion or an acceptable global perspective as to how mothers relate to their sons and how this contributes to this discussion that we're having and which led to the research that you have?
That's a tough one to deconstruct. And so I would bring it closer home to Kenya or to the continent, Africa, where I'm sitting right now. I don't know if I can say, so if I understand your question right, and let me paraphrase my understanding, you can correct me, that women are the reason why men and boys are the way they are.
No. Women contribute significantly. You see, if I take the discussion even further, there is a compensatory element to it that's why I talked about the absenteeism of the relationships that women have with their male partners and how this then reflects on the upbringing of their sons. In an African context, let me perhaps give this matter a little more flesh. You'll find a girl child is brought up to be very capable. The things that a girl child can do by the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 are a variety. The boy child is disabled, but so again, it's upbringing.
Are you saying maybe that women who are mothers are enabling or perpetuating this way of being in boys and men, that they have a part to play in how they turn out to be?
Thank you so much. See, this is the benefit of speaking this colonizer's language.
Okay, so if that is what you're saying, thank you, Ndu, for that. I would say no.
Yes.
Why are we, you, let me just go there, saying that it's the woman's fault, it's the woman's role, and why not the man? So you see, that is where this whole idea of feminism and women's rights comes in. Why are we looking at the woman who carried that baby for 9 months, did all that breastfeeding for how many months, took care of that child, is still taking care of them until the day that whenever. Why is that burden of care still on the woman? Why wouldn't we rather reconstruct your question to say the man who is the absentee father is the one that has contributed to this problem that we have? And why are we rather saying it's a woman?
City?
Well, her point is an extremely valid one. And it's what you call a perspective. Okay? It's just a change of perspective. But let me now give you an alternate perspective. It is the socialization and the effects of it. Because if one is brought up to conduct themselves or to view that life should be conducted in a certain way, it's how they will conduct themselves. Even when there is no absentee father, the role that women on this continent believe and feel they have towards child upbringing, it's not a burden. It's something that they feel they must do. I'm not speaking about something that's theoretical. I'm speaking about the reality of how it happens. In stable
and it's not an imposition.
No.
It's a responsibility that they take.
And they take even pride in. This is what I'm
proudly.
So much so that if it is seen, and these are things that I've seen with my eyes, Prof. So much so that if you, in some settings, if a woman were to see a man, God forbid, entering into the kitchen and picking up an onion and cutting it, it's as though they've been...
Surely.
Yeah. Masculation has taken place.
Yeah.
And this is the woman who is saying, oh my God, it can never happen. In the kitchen, a man? No, Jesus is coming tomorrow.
You're right. And I think that brings to the point the word you use, socialization.
Yes.
And this is where this whole idea of gender roles.
Yes.
Yeah, I know that within the context now we live in, the word gender has become really amorphous and all that. But gender simply means, I think it would have been better off using the word sex, which is really the biological aspects of it. But then again, some people are not comfortable with that. But it's a gender roles, which simply means that if you're a man, this is how you should behave. If you're a woman, this is how you should behave. And because even we as women have been told that the kitchen is a woman's place. The onion cutting is a woman. So even when we see a man doing those, we're like, no, this is something wrong, like you rightly said.
It's usurping my
Exactly.
job.
We all need a deconstruction. Because what is wrong with a man cooking? And some men cook better than some women.
I agree.
Some men can take care of a baby. A man cannot, by the current world we live in, maybe it's going to be happening soon, carry a baby for 9 months. But men can carry babies on their back. Men birth babies. So these are all things that if we do together and share these gender roles and realize that there's nothing wrong with, it's about the value we place on the work being done. Like you rightly said, the girls by 11 can do so much, the boys maybe not. But we still place more value on the little that the boy does and not the so many other things that the girl does. Let me give you a quick example. Kenya has your first woman Chief Justice. Yeah, she has joined a long list of women across Africa. My research shows that Africa has produced more women chief justices and presidents of constitutional courts than any other continent. But how often do we know this? How often do we think about this? Your chief justice has been in office for going on 2 years now. And I can tell you, I haven't done the study yet. I'm going to do it. Based on the research I did in 2015, which we explained, looking at that time the number of women who had been in chief justice positions, you find that the women were equally qualified and sometimes more qualified than their male predecessors. So if we look at the legacy of any other chief justice and we were to compare, let's look at the current work that has been done by Chief Justice Martha Koome in less than 2 years, what she's been able to achieve, and compare that. And not to say that we're comparing for the sake of pointing fingers, but we're comparing for the sake of saying that when a woman is in a position of leadership and she is contributing to transforming systems, whether in this case justice or judicial systems, we have to look at the record, recognize, celebrate, and acknowledge the fact that the woman in leadership is changing systems for the good, and not pick at banal things that are just for the sake of sensationalizing. Women in leadership have a right to be there. The record has shown that they've done a good job in places. The research has shown that when there are more women on boards, the boards do better. With some research. So once again, I am not saying that we should engage in a game of comparison, but it's a game of recognizing, acknowledging, and giving credit where credit is due.
It's quantifying the outcomes and the outputs. Now, what needs to be done in these 4 countries that you conducted this research? You said, for example, let's just looking at Kenya, in terms of women in positions of leadership in the judiciary, it's almost coming to 50%. In the academia, it's below that. In the bar, it's below that. What needs to be done to increase that?
Yeah, it's a lot. So once again, we break the recommendations into different levels. So once again, the institutional level, the structural level, and the individual level. So just to your point, some women do still need leadership training. It's all about the socialization. We're socialized from the very get-go that leadership is for men. Some women also shy away from leadership because when a woman gets into leadership, you get all sorts of things thrown at you. So some people say, it's just not me, I don't have the time. So that individual aspect has to be. We have to also invest in training. We have to invest in programs, for example, for those in academia. It's a publish or perish. So if women are not getting the opportunities to publish because of the double burden care of childcare, and not just childcare, adult care, communal care, then they don't have the time. So how do we get more fellowships for women to be able to publish? In the bar, the Law Society would also have to have a conversation about, think about it, if about 40% of the people of the bar are women, but when it comes to elections, a woman doesn't rise up, what is the problem? And it's a national thing, right? Even in politics. What is, once again, the ways in which we women have to deconstruct our minds and support women, and also men have to deconstruct their minds to know that a woman can equally be a leader. And why are women not contesting for these positions? We need to look at those. So,
the question that comes to my mind is, yet we still find women being elected. What is it about these women, and why is it that they get elected?
The ones that get elected.
Yes, against this background of a clear bias. What do they do? What is it about them?
Yeah. So within the legal professions, I'm just looking at that. Kenya, it's only been one. So I'm going to have to figure out what made that exception outlier case. Yeah, the 3 deputy vice chairs society of the society we need to look at. So my simple answer would be, the extrapolating from other factors is a lot of things, other circumstances. The selection method, is a timing, is an issue of the person, is an issue of the networks they have, and then if we were to looking at politics, it's an issue of money. But in the case of this one, I think that would be my next research project. What is it about those ones that got them there? So thank you for that research
you
question.
can involve CT in that next research. Prof, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for the work that you've done. Welcome. Come back again. Come back soon to the show.
I will do. Thank you for making me feel so relaxed. Thank you.
Professor Japa Dawoni is a founder and executive director of the Institute for African Women in Law. We've been talking about women in law and leadership in those 4 countries, particularly Kenya. Keep it here for more conversations. Good morning. It's now 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. Retired President Uhuru Kenyatta has convened an urgent consultation with the East African Community technical advisors to review the worsening security situation in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. In a release, the meeting was necessitated by the deteriorating security situation, particularly in Ituri and North Kivu, where the serious escalation of fighting and targeted killings is reported to be taking place. Convening the meeting in his capacity as the facilitator of the EAC-led Nairobi process on the restoration of peace and stability in Eastern DRC, Kenyatta in addition called for a calm and immediate cessation of hostilities. He expressed his deep concern about the serious violation of the Nairobi Principles and the Luanda Agreement. He also called for an urgent return to dialogue and consultation in order to promote trust and confidence among the parties to the conflict and alleviate the suffering of the people in the Eastern DRC. Now, in a bid to address underperformance in his government and move to face negligence among government officials, Trans Nzoia Governor George Natembeya will today launch a program that will hasten service delivery for the residents dubbed Rapid Results Initiative. Natembeya says the aim of the program is to strengthen the performance by making citizens a priority.
RRI ni kama vile mtu ana jumpstart gari, ile battery imelala. Kwa hivyo vile tumekuja kwa serikali tukapata serikali imelala, nataka ku jumpstart. RRI inamaanisha Rapid Results Initiative. Yale maneno ambayo ni ya kiserikali ambayo yanafanywa kwa muda fulani, nataka kupunguza huo muda. Kama jambo litakana kufanyika na in 1 hour, nataka ipunguzwe kwa kama dakika 10. Na inawezekana. Tuna focus kwa matokeo, kwa results, sio procedure. Kwenda kuambia mtu inatakikana, pana kama inawezekana umsaidie mwananchi haraka inawezekana bila kumwambia leta hii. Hiyo ndio RRI.
At the launch, senior government officials will have to sign a performance contract to comply with the 5-year county integrated development plan.
Baada ya hiyo siku 100 za RRI, tunataka ile pace ambayo tutakuwa tumeset itaendelea hivyo. Imaanishi kwamba baada ya siku 100 tunarudi kulala tena. Hiyo peak inaendelea namna hiyo. Na ndipo naona kutakuwa na signing ya performance contracts. Maofisa wote wamepewa targets. Na ile muda ambao wanatakana kupewa hizo targets, na inajulikana namna gani kama hizo targets wamezitekeleza. Kwa hivyo hii ni njia mpya ya kufanya kazi. Tunataka watu wetu wapate huduma wa serikali. Isikuwe tu kama vile ilikuwa kitambo, inakuwa ni uje kijayo, nani yuko kwa ofisi, hujaleta hii, tafuta hii, umekuja kwa wamechelewa. Hapana, tunataka huduma wanafanyika chap chap ili wananchi wa serikali.
Now, the High Court in Eldoret has dismissed a petition filed by Turkana Governor Jeremiah Lumurkai, in which he was seeking anticipatory bail following concerns that he faces imminent arrest for allegedly forging his university academic qualifications. Lumurkai filed the application as urgent before Eldoret High Court Judge Arya Kondi on January 27th, while urging the court to bar the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecutions from arresting and pressing charges against him. According to Lumurkai, he has not been able to carry out his duties as Turkana governor owing to concerns about the imminent arrest. Now, the Kenya Meteorological Department says Kenyans should brace for 2 long months of severe heat, with temperatures remaining abnormally high until the last week of March. The weatherman says that while temperatures are unusually high, the current state borders on heat wave. Richard Mwita, the Assistant Director of Climate Services, Kenya Meteorological Department, says the conditions that we are experiencing now also hinge towards getting a heat wave, but heat waves are normally localized kind of events, so it can only happen in specific areas. The weatherman says that for far-flung counties like Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, Isiolo and Marsabit counties that have recorded temperatures as high as 40 degrees Celsius, the drought situation will worsen. The Met Department attributes the current warmer than normal situation to La Nina condition, the periodic cooling of ocean surface temperatures in the central and east central equatorial Pacific. And the Employment and Labour Court has declined to stop the swearing in of the Hustler Fund Oversight Board members. 3 Kenyans filed a case in court saying that the appointment of the board members is illegal, adding that there was no public participation. President William Ruto, in a Gazette notice, appointed Irene Karimi as the chairperson of the newly established Financial Inclusion Fund, popularly known as the Hustler Fund, for a period of 3 years. The petitioners argued that the appointment of the board members was done without open interviews and vetting to examine suitability and skills. They argued that the President and Cooperatives and MSMEs Development Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui discriminated persons with disability by not appointing any of them to the board. They further argued that there is an imminent danger if the interested parties and board members will assume office illegally, hence rendering this position an academic exercise. And the Law Society of Kenya has decried the low number of women rising to power post despite their credentials. LSK Vice Chairperson Faith Odhiambo said,
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so we're still looking at traffic in certain parts of the city this morning. A little bit here and there. Still continues getting into the city centre. It's heavy on the Thika Superhighway. It's heavy on Kiambu Road, Limuru Road, all that still doing the rounds in there. And of course, let's take a quick look at what's going on the Eastern Bypass, and traffic is still really heavy there. That construction, they say, will be over tonight. So hopefully by tomorrow morning, there can be some reprieve, right? Fingers crossed. Knock on wood. Juja Road, heavy coming in from the Armed Forces Academy all the way through to Muranga Road. So that's very heavy traffic coming off Juja Road this morning. All right, let's keep an eye on things. Half an hour or so. All right, SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning. Welcome to the third hour of the Situation Room. We're here until 10 a.m. and thank you very much for all the comments that keep coming in on social media. Social media, yes. For example, Alex Owiti, on that conversation that we're having, he says the African setup in the village gives and defines roles of a girl and a boy to the extent that they are interchangeably allocated when one is not available. We have made our African system look inferior, yet it raised responsible men and women. Right. Alex, thanks for that comment. Listen, Siti.
Yes, please.
Take us back to Windhoek. Windhoek. And give us, the president is called again, what? Hege.
Yes. Gengob.
All right.
All right. An old monkey never forgets to climb tree.
Yes.
Old monkey, tree.
Forget not.
Not forget.
An old monkey will never forget to climb a tree.
Yes.
Listen, I want to read an excerpt from a story that was written in January, the 3rd of January to be precise. Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi has assured that the prices of key food commodities, which include unga and rice, will come down in the month of February. With escalating food prices and high cost of living due to the removal of subsidies in food commodities, Linturi said plans are in place to change the current situation that has caused uproar among Kenyans. He said, we are going to import maize and rice, and we are not doing it because we want. The projections are so bad that if we don't do it, our people will die for lack of food. By the end of February, the price of unga and rice will have come down. Okay? He said the Kenya Kwanza government is banking on food production across the country as a viable solution to changing the current scenario. That was last month. We are now in February. Okay? This is the month by which in about a few weeks' time, the price of unga should be coming down.
Yep.
And rice should be available, okay, at affordable prices. This is just one aspect. Other aspects of distribution of fertilizer. If you just go to Google and Google Linturi distribution fertilizer, you will see. Or just Ruturi distribution. You start with Linturi February fertilizer. Google that. Linturi February fertilizer and see. They have said February they were working on mapping out all the farmers, creating a system where it's going to be a proper receipting system that is just digital. Hakuna yo?
In Iko, don't worry.
You have to do the robot. So the robot is asking you to prove that you're a human.
Don't look human.
Yeah? They said they were working on, creating a database of farmers so that we know which farmers and what their needs are. So when the subsidized fertilizer arrives, it goes straight to the farmer. And in fact, we even remove that whole cost of saying the farmer is going to collect the fertilizer at NCPB. The farmer is going to get the fertilizer at the local agrovet. Sindio?
Yeah.
At this subsidized. And the receipting system is going to be digitized. So whenever you want to receive, you do something on your phone and it shows Ndu has received 3 bags of fertilizer because she needed 3 bags of fertilizer.
Thank you very much.
That is the conversation that we should be having in February because long rains in this country begin in March. Towards end of February into March, long rains. Okay? So farmers should be having that. This thing called the Financial Inclusion Fund. The Huduma, no, not Huduma. It's called the Hustler Fund. The Hustler Fund was rolled out in December. And that was just the personal loans. And people have been borrowing, and we've been getting updates from the Ministry of MSMEs and Cooperatives and all about the billions of shillings that have been disbursed in loans, the billions of shillings that have been repaid, the millions of borrowers who have actually become repeat borrowers. Okay? Hiyo mambo yote You are searching what? Fertilizer February? Good.
Nikwambie.
Hiyo mambo yo wacha ifungue uniambie. In February, they are to launch the second aspect of the Hustler Fund, which is the main part, which is to support small and micro businesses. So where businesses can come and borrow to the tune of 50,000 shillings and above.
Yes,
you know.
please.
So then they can get working capital for their businesses to operate. That's a conversation that should be taking place when? This month.
Yes.
The president directed the Ministry of the National Treasury and Economic Planning to come up with a supplementary budget and cut expenditure by 300 billion shillings. Yesterday, the president chaired a cabinet meeting, and the dispatch from the cabinet was saying that they have looked at the supplementary budget now, and it reflects this 300 billion shilling budget cut to cut our quote according to our size.
Size.
Yes. These are the conversations that should be taking place now. That would be taking place. Were it not for the fact that we have been diverted by
taxes,
drama,
jacaranda,
taxes, Chibukati, bombers, who visited, who did what, wanted to kidnap the other, wanted to
kill another one,
kill. Oh.
You know, what you're discussing gets to the heart of this particular matter.
Yes.
And when you have regions of the country that previously were considered a breadbasket, you talk about Nyeri, you talk about Meru, you talk about Rakanithi, where people are now receiving food aid due to crop failure.
Yes.
Okay. And then you hear conversations where we are being told, farmers in the Mount Kenya region are saying, no, we don't want fertilizer, we want water. It's water that we need. Now, if it isn't raining, surely we have heard, we know, we've been told, we've even seen that some people dig somewhere in the ground and water comes up.
Yeah.
So, is it possible for the government to consider...
Come and dig our ground.
Yes. Yes.
These things that are said, the question is, are they informed? Because one would hope that when you make a public proclamation about something, that it is fueled by information and data, n'est-ce pas?
Yes.
Okay. On the 4th of January, this is what you were alluding to earlier, Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithika Lunturi assured, not suggested, not said perhaps maybe, assured that the prices of key food commodities, which include unga and rice, will come down in the month of February, which is what now? Where we are?
Today is the 1st of February.
Very good.
Uh-huh.
Key food commodities, unga, rice, the prices will come down
this month.
Assured.
Yes.
Again, not a suggestion, not an if, but, or maybe. Assurance. Okay? Food prices gone high. Cost of living through the roof due to the removal of subsidies in food commodities, but also that the economy had taken a hit. We know this. He said that plans are in place to change the current situation that has caused an uproar among Kenyans. Now, you must understand, the uproar is not the issue. The truth of the matter is that life has gotten more expensive, which then led to the uproar. Okay? He said, number one, we are going to import maize, lest we forget, and we are not doing it because we want. Can I say that again?
Yes.
We are going to import maize and rice, and we are not doing it because we want to, as in the situation has forced us to.
When did he say this?
On the 4th of January.
We are going to import.
On the 4th of January this year, 2023.
Yeah, they're opening the import window.
Yeah. The projections are so bad that if we don't do it, our people will do what? They will die.
Yes.
By the end of February, okay, so there's still some 27 days, the price of unga and rice will have come down. So, Eric, was still window possibility.
Yeah.
The Agriculture Cabinet Secretary mentioned that the KK government was banking on food production across the country as a viable solution to change the current scenario. The droplets of rain that we talk about coming in the month of March is what would now give rise to this food production across the country, not importation of food, because we know that Kenya is a net importer of food today.
It is.
It is, all right?
It is.
But now what he's saying is that we want to ensure that there's food production. One of the ways to do that is to make sure that your inputs are what? Low.
Yeah.
And to make sure that you have managed the natural conditions such as rain and stuff to be able to facilitate this. So the lowering of the cost of fertilizer to make it possible for farmers to be able to do their thing? What do the millers need? So if you're saying that there will be adequate food production across board, that means that's why I started by saying we hope that such public proclamations have been fueled by data and information. Will it actually be possible to have food production across board in 1 month in Kenya?
Well, the thing is, it's a rainy season, it's a planting season.
Yes.
Okay? The whole idea here is there are two things. There is importation of the food, so the millers can get that cheap maize.
Yes.
So then they can bring the unga to us at a cheaper price.
Yes.
All right? That is one. There is the second one that is the short term. The medium term is this rainy season. Let us support our farmers so that our farmers are able to actually produce food in abundance and cheaply. And that is where the conversation about fertilizers comes in.
Yes.
When the president was meeting with his government in Fairmont, Mount Kenya last month, he talked about why they were registering farmers, because they've been registering farmers. That's what they say.
Yeah.
They've been registering farmers across the country to know the need. So we know the farmers, we know where you are, and we have identified stockists. So we also know X number of farmers will get their fertilizer from stockist A. You will go to stockist A, you will use technology this time. Mambo ya ukora ya chief, forget it. Go with your, get your fertilizer from there, 3,500, go plant. Now, this was ahead of the rainy season. The rainy season begins later this month into March. So by now, farmers should be identified. Farmers should actually be getting the conversation of, this is a fertilizer that you're getting.
Yeah.
There's still the issue of the farmer extension services. In some parts of the North Rift, the conversation has been acidic soils. So what are we going to do to deal with the acidic soils so that then we can get better yields? That was also part of the conversation. All these things are what we should be getting and hearing today. That's what we should be discussing, so we can look at, okay, in 1 year, the way the president said, give me 1 year, I'm going to sort this out. So by the time these farmers are harvesting the maize next year, we'll have a bumper harvest. So our maize millers will not need to import.
And Kenya's barns will be full.
We will have a bumper harvest, we will have cheap unga. Sorted, we can see the journey. We are not hearing that conversation. And that's why we want to open the phone line. So if you are actually listening to us from the breadbasket of the country and you have been registered and you have been told when you're receiving your fertilizer, can we hear?
Tell us, please.
Please tell us. Because lest we forget, these are the conversations that this country should be having today. If you have an issue with anybody who is not paying tax, go for them. There's a legally constituted revenue authority. Let it do its job. There are laws. There's a revenue tribunal. There are courts. Deal with them. If you feel that there's a new evidence that you come up with that shows that you won the election, deal with the proper channels. These concerts on Sundays are distracting us.
There's a disconnect somewhere in this conversation about the needs that we have in the country that have been brought about by the prolonged drought, and of course the effects of the war in Ukraine. There's that. Yes. And then there's inflation. And then hot on the heels of this, of course, there was COVID, which hasn't really gone anywhere. It's just become a friendly pet that we live with. And we
every now and then we can throw some shade on
There's an MOU that we have with it. What I find disconcerting about what I'm calling a disconnect is this. I understand the need to import foodstuffs to ensure that we don't have a shortage. What I don't understand is how a government that has been put in place to look after the welfare of the people has actions that seem to not just contradict but unfairly compete with their own citizens who are farmers. If you bring in duty-free maize, duty-free, is it not bound to be cheaper than the maize that is produced locally?
Yes, no.
Okay. So what then will you do? Because you're talking about cheap fertilizer because the fertilizer that was on the market was clearly not cheap. Otherwise, you wouldn't be referring to cheap fertilizer. Cheap fertilizer. Cheap fata. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, what are the farmers supposed to do with this maize that they have produced? I am thinking, should the conversation not have been that whatever was produced,
we mop it, huh?
Yeah, or it has been mopped up.
Buy it.
And we have paid a premium for it so that our farmers are able to plant for the next season.
Yep.
And the idea is so that we can avert a situation where we need to import again. Is that have I got this conversation wrong, or is this what we ought not to be having?
You're right.
But it's not what we are having. No. And you talk about rice. You talk about maize. I am absolutely certain that other cereals have also been imported.
Yes.
We are never, in this country, you are never really told the full story. And even these quantities that they are speaking of and saying, well, 10 million bags. Who's counting?
Who stood there and said, 1, 2. Wait. Hey, come back.
Rudy.
Put them back in. Let's just start again.
45, 46.
Mimi nimechoka shift yako inaanza. Who? No, truth, and we can laugh about it, but it's actually serious. We can throw some numbers out there and say, rah. Okay, but who's actually making sure that these things are actually happening? And that short term, medium term, long term, in terms of what you want to do, is crucial to getting this country out of this thing. That we understand that there are short-term measures that need to be taken because, he's right. The CS is right. If we don't feed Kenya today, people will die. That's the truth of the matter. That there needs to be short-term interventions to make sure people are taken care of. That is true. The rains are coming. People need to plant. You need to make sure fertilizer is then available. That is medium term, okay? Because after a year, you can't really call a year long term in terms of planning for things like this. You really cannot. Now, thereafter, what is going to be done to make sure that this current situation is avoided in the future? And that has always been my thing. Look, you don't have to do a lot to figure it out. Where Kenya is geographically placed, that means that these issues of drought that are being faced in 2021, 2022, they will do their cycle and it will continue to be. The rains will come, things will be lush and green for a very short period of time. Then you will get back into the situation where you'll be faced by drought. This is what we're talking about today. What are you doing to make sure that your barns will be full in the medium term so that it allows your long-term plans to kick in? It cannot be that a country that is developing like this is still dealing with issues of food on its staple. We're not talking about luxury things like cheese and butter and yogurt. On its staple food, the measures to guarantee that it is available to the population all the time have not been put in place. That's a problem. It is a problem. The short term is, before we even talk about medium and long term, the short term does not seem to be working. So how about some attention actually be put and work actually be done to make sure it happens? And this is one thing that you can do right now, because everybody throws their hands up and say, what can we do? Cherargei sat in this chair last year and told us, the month he mentioned was February. February we'll harvest. There's maize. Okay, why are you not buying the maize from these farmers today? Why must we import maize? And we're talking about farmer protectionism. Why must you import maize? And farmers have planted. Why will you not buy it from them? The big C word is just hanging around there. Cartels. So which is more important? To feed your pocket or to feed your people?
There's this conversation that Kenyans have with themselves about how biggest economy in East Africa, East Africa, ahead of everybody in East Africa. Why don't we just pause for a second and look at the facts? These countries that we are better than in East Africa, we import food from them.
They are food secure, we are not.
Yes, we are not. We are better than them in East Africa. We are better industrialized in East Africa. In Tanzania,
they can feed the people.
Yes, they can feed the people. In Tanzania, they are building a mega hydroelectric dam. It's called Julius Nyerere. The mega kilo voltage watts that will be produced in that particular dam will be the largest on this continent. Over 2,100, I think, and 11, however you measure electricity in terms of the turbo power. Okay? What am I saying? I am saying we are busy running the country with words. We are busy managing our government with words. We are busy governing with words. And our neighbors are actually doing things. They are actually industrializing as we watch. They're actually ensuring that they are food secure. They're actually ensuring that the very things that we are talking about continuously, that they're actually doing. Okay? And every time we talk about helping the Mwananchi and solving the problem, the stark reality is that as we talk about solving the problem, what you see being done doesn't solve the problem. It creates a bigger problem. How do you talk about wanting to industrialize, and how do you talk about wanting to be a first world country? Where in first world countries, governments support farmers. They even pay farmers not to produce certain things to avoid a glut. They pay them. And if they don't pay them, they buy. I mean, that is called protectionism.
What's the role of the NCPB?
This thing that we're discussing here, that's really what they're supposed to do. But and usually they need a budget, which they must be given in order to enable them to be able to purchase.
Price stabilization and such and such and such.
It's like EPRA.
There's, for the longest time, they will say, oh, well, there's no food in the barn, so therefore the work of the NCPB is finished. Until there's, cereals readily available, that's when we can talk about then your role. Actually, no. That it is at this time when we're talking about these things that you must be working in tandem. And I'm telling you, so long as you will not develop further beyond having the ability to feed your people. And I think that's the nitty-gritty of it here. We cannot be talking about some grand and lofty castles in the sky that are being built when your people are hungry. You can't. And if you have a board that has been instituted to make sure that you take care of some of these things, working hand in hand with the parent body, which is the Ministry of Agriculture, however you want to look at it, if you cannot deal with the basic rudimentary issue of feeding your people,
the rest are stories.
You have this story of the number of dams you want to build. Remember I mentioned it?
Tell us about those dams, by the way. Where are they?
All right.
When are they going to be built?
Let me just count
in 6
for you.
months, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
263
the mic, tafadhali.
263. And there's talk about the revival of the Kimwarer and Aror dams.
Okay.
These dams, my friend, plant dams all over the country. All over the country. Mombasa, Kwale, Kilifi, Tana River, Lamu, Taita Taveta, Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, Marsabit, Isiolo, Meru, Tharaka Nithi, Embu, Kitui, Machakos, Makueni, Nyandarua, Nyeri, Kirinyaga, Murang'a, Kiambu, Turkana, West Pokot, Samburu, Trans Nzoia, Uasin Gishu, Elgeyo Marakwet, Nandi, Baringo, Laikipia, Nakuru, Narok, Kajiado, Kericho, Bomet, Kakamega, Vihiga, Busia, Siaya, Kisumu, Homa Bay, Migori, Kisii, Nyamira, even Nairobi.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Yes.
2 dams per county.
It is a good thing. The point here is this. What's the low-hanging fruit that we need to look at in terms of ensuring that we are food secure? The dams are built for a purpose. Okay? Now, build the dams by all means. But dams can't be built in a week or a month.
Really?
No, you can't. They take a very, very long time. In a country that doesn't have money, there is money to build dams. What do we need right now?
Food.
Yes. Again, what do we need? Security. Because every time you look at the papers, I was looking at the article about maize in the North Rift. The next story next to it, banditry in Turkana. 10,000 people have left their homes because bandits are roaming freely.
Yes, no. It's not the other day when CS had just left and then people they sent a smoke signal to say, excuse me. Thank you very much for what you've just said. But we can see you. We are also showing you that we are here.
Yes.
So don't just be talking anyhow. That's it. What do you need? What can you do now?
Or at least walk the journey with the people, all right? So if this conversation was taking place and saying, we're going to begin with this number of dams. Why? Because these dams, they're going to be fed by these rivers and we expect rainfall. Met has told us this long rainy season, there's going to be rain in these areas. Those areas are going to feed these rivers. For example, River Aror, or is it River Kimwarer? Those rivers in Elgeyo Marakwet.
Yes.
It is going to rain in that region.
It will.
Those rivers will have water. Okay? So if we are talking about, so this Elgeyo Marakwet County, it's rich. It can grow anything. There's coffee, there's mangoes, if we had these dams ready, we would get into this level of food production. If we go into this other area, if we had these dams ready, we would get into this level of food production. In the next 3 years, we will not be depending on rainfall patterns. We'll be depending on just using the dams. In the meantime, this is what we are doing. This is a conversation that we're not having. And that's why I'm livid with the political leadership. All of them, I said. From the president to the opposition leader to the leaders of the National Assembly, both majority, minority, all of them, including Martha Karua. This conversation is what we should be having. You putting the government in check and saying, these are the timelines you gave us. Where are we?
Yep.
Where are we heading? You want to come to us with a proposed budget of 3.6 trillion shillings. What are the priority areas in our country today? How are we able to finance what we currently have? We have people, millions of people who are hungry today. How are we feeding those people? If the Jacaranda rally was a fundraiser where people went and they kill them to shilingi kumi, and we left that Jacaranda rally saying we've contributed 2 million shillings that can go towards
buying
unga for people who are starving, we'll be having a conversation. We are not having those conversations. It's as if the 2 million or so, 4 million people who are hungry in Kenya, see ninja too.
Just be hungry.
It's ninja peke yake. That's not a big issue. The big issue is Chibukati. No, we are losing it, and I think we are being managed. We are being managed by those political leaders working in concert, sitting somewhere in a room and discussing and saying, "Wait, Raila, if these people remember that it's February, that rains are going to come, that I don't have fertilizer, that farmers are not getting the fertilizer. If they remember that the maize that is coming is going to take a while before the unga price comes down. If these people remember that there are Kenyans who are dying because of hunger, if they remember that there are parts of this country where people are being killed, and I promise that this is going to end immediately. If they remember, it's going to be worse. So can you just distract them? Hold those concerts on Sundays. Hold political rallies. Now me, I'll be chairing you. You say, I'm going to have my next rally on Sunday, and I say, tunakuonea 18 wewe chamba yako wewe. Hii unataka, watu wengine wanataka tu apewe serikali. Hakuna upati, haupati serikali.
Then we talk about it for 24 hours.
We distract them with this conversation.
Meanwhile, it's February 1st.
Back and forth. They forget. Because if they remember, they will take themselves to Jacaranda, and it will be a big issue. So you take them to Jacaranda, manage them, let them go home at the end of Sunday. This is, I think, what is happening. This whole talk of tax, there are people who are not paying tax. There are people who wanted to kill Chebukati.
And those people who are not paying tax, then are wanting to make sure that people go to Jacaranda.
Yeah, they're the ones who are sponsoring Jacaranda.
Yeah. No.
This is hogwash. Absolute BS.
Are we going on a break?
We should.
It's necessary to just take a sip of
So you have Minute Maid.
Yeah.
A sip would be ideal at this particular point in time.
Yeah.
A little energy in the system.
Time for the Minute Maid break. It's 25 to 10. 0719-014. No. 0719-012-600.
Well done.
Okay, that's it. 0719-012-600. That's our phone line. Are we being managed? Are our political leaders, and I'm not talking about just the president, I'm talking about all our political leaders, those that have been elected, those whom people have placed a lot of hope in, are they completely out of touch with our reality as a country today? Let's hear from you after we take this break to take a look at the weather and traffic.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
Sleepwalking through the afternoon. Sleepwalking through the afternoon. Sleepwalking through the afternoon.
Don't live life on repeat. Enjoy your break moments with Minute Maid Delight, a treat that awakens your senses and fills you with vitality. So fill those break moments with the indulgent sensations of Minute Maid, featuring delicious mango, tropical and apple flavors. Minute Maid, filled with life.
3, 2.
Everybody, welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Heri Latifa, Kismuga, Madam Du, nimesalimia wote sana.
Tumepokea salamu, asante sana.
Hapa Garissa today the weather is very good, only that baridi inatupeleka mbio sana.
Sasa baridi ni degree ngapi hapo?
Hata sijui lakini madam tunakauka sana.
If you want to follow the money trail, you've got to think like a thief to be able to catch that thief.
A slap from a friend is better than a kiss from an enemy. You remember the kiss of Judas Iscariot? Iscariot.
Yes.
He's the one that imetuweka kwa hii mashida yote na mataabu kwa sababu of that kiss. Yet the slap of Jesus Christ when he slapped those guys wenye walikuwa wanauza mboga ndani ya kanisa took them to heaven.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's 21 and sunny in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 29. And in Nakuru, highs of 30 today, lows of 14. We'll see lows of 11 in Nyeri and highs of 28. And 28 will also be the high in a sunny Eldoret at 20. It's 28 and partly sunny in Mombasa, highs of 32. And we'll see highs of 31 in Malindi. It's sunny at 27 in Kisumu, going to highs of 30. And we'll see highs of 31 in Kakamega, where it's sunny at 28. 22 and partly sunny conditions in Kampala, highs of 28. And we'll see highs of 32 in Dar es Salaam, where it's sunny at 29. All right, looking into Johannesburg, 18, going to highs of 23, and we'll see highs of 34 in a sunny Lagos at 25. It's sunny in Kinshasa at 24. And looking into Beijing, Wednesday afternoon into evening, 4 will be the high and lows of -7. It's 7 and cloudy in Paris, highs of 9, and we'll see highs of 10 in London, where it is cloudy at 6. -1 and cloudy in New York. Coming into Wednesday, highs of 4 and lows of -2.
Chilled Spice.
All right, yeah, still heavy on the Thika Superhighway this morning, and we're still seeing that on the Eastern Bypass. Just a shout out for you to know that it's still heavy there. Other parts of the CBD not doing too poorly, looking a lot better on Kiambu Road. Limuru Road was also reduced in terms of traffic, just a little bit. Past the Aga Khan Hospital, we'll still see some traffic there, and into the CBD looks really busy. The eastern part of the city taking a hit this morning with all the traffic that spills over from the parts that are chock-a-blocked. Hey, that word we've not used for a minute. Yeah, chock-a-blocked. Sounds good. SpiceFM KE through the morning, talk to us, try to keep things moving this morning.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
9012 Robert in Nandi, I see you were calling. Call. Edna will pick your call now. So we're talking about the what is happening in the country. All these conversations, all these talk about, this, the other, and what conversations we should actually be having in terms of what the government has promised to do and what's not done so far.
You know, it's important that the government has plans. It's important that the government demonstrates that it has a focus on development. All that is important. But that has to be against a backdrop of certain immediate and current needs that we have. So I have difficulties configuring how it is. You want to tell me that you will achieve these lofty goals when, as I call it, the low-hanging fruit of the basics that are required by the citizenry doesn't seem to have been fulfilled. I have a problem connecting the two. What do we need all these huge projects for if people are dying? I mean, they're meant for people, okay? So should the people not be our concern, even as we have these plans and as we put them into practice? How do we prioritize these things? Now, I cannot claim to understand the thinking of government, neither can I claim to understand the process that government uses to do these things, but I can only focus on the reality of what I'm seeing. The problems of hunger remain. The problems of banditry remain. the problem that farmers have, the problem that industrialists have with regards to having an enabling environment to do their business remains. Now, these are the cusp of government. The government. This is something the government can do something about. They actually can.
Yep.
They are able to. So, would I be wrong if asking then why don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to the phone lines. Just about to pick you, Robert. Robert, Marvin, John, please call again. I think there's something that's happened to our phone lines. Just call again. Yeah. Are we just being managed by the politicians in everything that they're saying? You know, oh, this, oh, the other. Now it's a whole circus of everything else. Robert, good morning.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Salama kabisa.
Leo mimi nimesikia nyinyi kuanzia saa 12.
Musuri.
Yeah, by the way, let me tell you guys, this one is like a lecture room. Yeah, there are a lot of things people learn out of your discussions, yeah?
Very good.
And that is why we are a bit knowledgeable now than last year.
Very good. Very good.
And then the red herrings.
Exam the next month.
Exam ninja. But then how are you people?
We're very well, thank you, sir.
Yeah, there's a difference between we will and we have.
Yeah.
And then from the Dakar summit, the Dakar 2 summit, there's something I saw yesterday, and I think I've watched it around 8 times today in the morning again.
Yeah.
And I want you guys to listen carefully from the president of Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Here it is.
Thank you very much. In Zimbabwe, we have adopted basic philosophy, which is village philosophy. 1, we say a country must be ruled by the people of that country. 2, a country must be developed by the people of that country. 3, a country must eat what it kills. That is village wisdom. Now, in Zimbabwe, we have problems of food insecurity, and we said, how much food do we want per year to feed our country? We know we need about 2 million metric tons of grain. So we say, because there is climate change, how many hectares of land can we put under irrigation to produce the 2 million plus metric tons to feed the nation? And we determine how much yield does a hectare have. Once you've done that, you now know how many hectares you must put under irrigation to achieve the amount of grain you want to feed your nation in spite of climate change. That we have done, and we are now food secure.
Now that is the difference, yeah? Yeah,
we have done.
We will. No, we will. Now, in Zimbabwe, it is we have.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a difference, and that is what the president yesterday alikuwa anasema, kuna maneno na
kufanya.
Asanteni sana.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. John in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning, Station Room.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, John.
It's been ages. So, my point is this.
Yes.
We have people who sit down somewhere and they plan how to control people. Just like as the West control Africa, by making sure we are fighting with our tribesmen so that we never ever discuss the beauty and the minerals we have in Africa. Here in Kenya, if we look what Raila said sometimes back, Ruto will not become the president without my saying so. So these people, they are friends behind the scene, and they play us like chess. They make us busy thinking about the this they're gonna do to us. And remember, Mutahi Ngunyi told us, this government will keep us on perpetual drama that will never realize the promises that were made to us. As you have said, Mr. Eric, that these people talk in the middle of the night, And they understand that if at all there's no fire and there's no smoke, these Kenyans will open their eyes and understand that these people have been lying to us.
Yep.
So there have to always be a smoke and fire. So that the moment we realize that we don't have, the fuel is expensive, NHF is not working, cost of life is going up, they bring us right out on the field and he starts saying the things that he'll do. And yet, when he does all those things, he never ever comes to the rescue of Kenyans when they have the real issues which need to be addressed by him and the people he controls in parliament. We can't have bills that are aimed to help Kenyans that never see the light of day, but when it comes to adding taxes on Kenyans so that we can be on perpetual poverty, so that they can be able to control us, nobody says anything. But when it's them and they want something like the way they wanted CDF, you see what they did?
Oh, yeah.
You understand?
They will stop at nothing and they will work together.
They work together. They work in concert, that you have said. I love your mind. But Kenyans are so stupid. When somebody comes when somebody comes and says Uhuru has to pay taxes, Uhuru is a man like me. He should pay taxes.
Yeah.
What the hula baru about that?
Peleka ya kotini kama hajalipa.
Exactly. And they shouldn't even tell us, because even now if they tell us they have paid, me and you, how will we know?
Yeah.
You get?
We don't. Thank you, John.
Something else, Mr. Eric, before I go. Our budget is only 3 trillion.
Yes.
We only produce 1.8. So we have a deficit of 1.2. We go to IMF or World Bank to go and
borrow.
Get that money from them.
Yeah.
When we come and get our 3 trillion, 80% or so goes to recurrent expenditure. 20% goes to development, which many a times is budgeted corruption. Tell me, when will we ever come out of debt? We'll never be.
It's a cycle.
Poverty beckons.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Peterson in Nairobi, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning to you, Peterson.
And thanks a lot for the very important conversations that you usually have at SpiceFM.
Yes.
I just wish that as Kenyans we would be having these conversations daily. Probably things would be different.
Indeed.
Yeah, allow me to contribute to the conversation about the food security. And I can tell you from a personal experience that the biggest problem we have is that as a nation we never learn. I sometimes try to do farming in wheat, large scale. Sometimes I try to do maize farming. And we had crop failure for consecutive 4 years. We tried to get government support on probably doing some research on what was happening, and this extension service. They are non-existent. The government has no program on how to support farmers. When I was growing up, when I was a young boy, I grew in a farm somewhere in Mount Narok. And we really used to have extension officers who would come around the village. They would teach us how to make some of the natural manures, like compost manure, how to control pests. They would teach us about the best seedlings that we are supposed to buy, depending on the region we are on. Those things are non-existent. Our farmers have no education.
No technical support
There is
at
no
all.
capacity building from the government
Yep.
that can actually assist our farmers to be able to plant the appropriate kind of crops for their regions. And that is one of the problems we have. And that is the biggest contributor to crop failure that we have.
That's true. Thank you, Peterson.
So our biggest problem and what we need is not for the government to tell us that now they want to convert public land and start
Building houses.
growing crops for the country there. What we need is to go back to basics. Can we have those people who have been able to be trained as extension workers? Can we employ them and send them down to the villages so that they can capacity build our farmers?
Yep.
Can we avail the appropriate seedlings to the appropriate areas. And we have a program on how we will be able to educate our farmers on the kind of crops they are supposed to plant. I know there are breeds like of maize that are drought resistant that are even growing in some areas of Kajiado and in Ukambani that require very little water, that can actually be grown and will assist these people be food secure. But the farmers have no clue about it. So the biggest problem with our food security is the problem of our country. We are a country that never learns. That is the problem.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for your call. And have a lovely day. Anthony in Mombasa.
Hey, shikamo.
Marhaba.
Hey, habari ya Nairobi.
Salama.
Let me just say one thing. We are auditing government as if it is a private entity. What do I mean? For, let's say, for a government department to just purchase one thing or make a decision that we have to take of change of policy, the time that it will take from the day they have it as an idea to the day that they will actualize, that time takes it is very long.
How long?
So even if today we come with very good ideas, we put up a bill, let's say, for example, the privatization bill is passed in Parliament this year. By the time the companies that are targeted to be privatized will be talking about 3-4 years down the line.
Why?
It is government bureaucracy. Unfortunately, even if Ruto comes to whichever town and says, we will have a road here today, it is not today. It is 2-3 years ahead. But now, we will be judging them as if it is a private company, which can just, a manager's signature, will be able to reallocate funds and things will move. So there are some services which I really wish for them to be privatized very fast so that these things can be done expeditiously.
Does that solve
we thank God.
Does that solve the problem?
Actually,
that
yes,
if you
it will be.
Hold on. It could solve a problem in the interim when you say, okay, so we need to release something and get it. But government has been instituted for a reason. The vehicle of government is supposed to guarantee certain things happen for the people of the country. That's why it's there. And if we are saying now that there's a bottleneck that stands in the way of this delivery to happen, and rather than insist, which is your right as a citizen of the country, that it be done right, we're saying, actually, you know what we'll do? Take that responsibility from you and give it to somebody else, as opposed to insisting, lobbying, agitating on a regular basis that this thing is done in the manner in which it ought to be done. For me, we're taking the easy route and saying, let's give it to somebody else who can actually handle it.
No, not really. Not really.
I'm saying,
let me just say this. The mobile industry, the mobile phone, came a long time, but it took some time for it to penetrate into Kenya.
That's true.
We had the telecom, we had the poster. We tried to revamp them. But imagine the day Safaricom and Kencell came into the market. Can you see how Kenya has changed? We have gone leaps and bounds. So it is not necessarily something bad. But can you imagine if something good comes, let's say KPLC gets a competitor. KPA, O&M is given to a certain company to run the port. We are talking about efficiency.
Ni sawa, lakini Anthony.
Yes.
You know, when we say these things, we assume that a government is not in perpetuity. A government is in perpetuity. Okay?
Yes.
Key things that, for example, we've seen the administration of William Ruto has been able to make a decision and get on the ground with. The Financial Inclusion Fund. From non-existence to regulations to public participation, to parliamentary approval, to launch.
Yes.
Okay? We have very many questions, the source of the funds, blah, blah, blah. But are people borrowing? We are being told that they have borrowed over 19 billion shillings.
Very true.
All right. So if it's possible to do that, if it's possible, for example, to say we are going to have a subsidy on fertilizer and already a few million bags of fertilizer have been distributed, why are we not talking about distributing the rest of the millions of fertilizer? That doesn't require 6 months or 3 years to implement. We're talking about those basic ones. If it's fertilizer, if it's seeds.
Yes.
And the plan was within this short time before the rainy season, farmers should have seeds, should have fertilizer, so that they can plant and should have the assistance that they're getting. That's what we're talking about.
If you can do it on one, you can do it on the other.
Yes.
And that's what we're saying.
Okay, not entirely. We can't take what happens in A will definitely happen in B.
It's not the mechanization of it. It's the will that lies behind the action. That if you are really resolute about getting something done, that the bureaucracy and the red tape won't matter. And that's what we're saying here. That if it is really in your interest to make sure that the livelihoods of the people of Kenya are secured in food, in health, in whatever, that you will cut the red tape and do it. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, but you are showing that you have the will to actually get it done.
But what we call red tape is law. Yeah. What we call bureaucracy is law.
Yeah.
So if tomorrow Ruto decides, let's put aside law and address the problems we have today, believe me, the anarchy that will happen is...
I know we're running out of time, but let me give you a beautiful example. NGCDF was not considered law. Right? Yes. The court said we're stopping this thing. Count the weeks that it took to get the thing, and 4 billion shillings already moved. 4 billion shillings already moved to the counties. Why? Because members of parliament said, all these things that you want us to do, we are not going to do. But it was important for them to get those funds to the counties, and they got it done. Why do you think they got it done? Why?
Counties are
and we're talking about something that was entrenched in what? In law.
But counties are already devolved in law. Counties are devolved in law.
Declared it
NGCDF counties Antonio ni constituency bana.
Lakini imeenda wapi?
Imeenda kwa account ya nani? Iko kwa account ya constituency.
Constituencies have received 4 billion as we speak.
Anthony, thank you for calling.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good one.
Much.
Thank you. Always good to engage. And thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation. NASA says, regarding action, I agree, we are slow on implementation, but 5 months for a new government is a very short time. You judge a government performance over a minimum of 4 to 5 year period.
No, you judge a government on whether its people are eating every day.
So tuongee mambo ya Chebukati, mambo ya nini, mambo ya watu walipe ushuru for 4 or 5 years. Hapana bana. People, see you tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in. Have a lovely day. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life